Okay, we need to make a motion to come out of
I'd
recess.
make a motion that we come out of recess.
Second.
By Drew, second by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. First, we have Extension Advisory Board. I'm going to eat while you're.
That's fine. Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Regina Bakley, and I am one of the 4-H program advisors here for Pennington County. A quick little update. We currently have 452 enrolled youth in Pennington County. We have 74 certified volunteers through SDSU, and we have 20 clubs. We were actually lucky enough to get one of our 4-Hers to come share a little bit about her experience in 4-H. Kendall is an 11-year member of Pennington County.
John Quincy Adams once said, "If your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader." My name is Kendall Dane, and I am 18 years old, and I have been in 4-H for 11 years. 4-H has taught me life skills, leadership skills, and social skills. 4-H has helped me to learn many practical life skills, such as sewing, cooking, and smart shopping choices. Leadership skills taught in 4-H consist of learning parliamentary procedure and Robert's Rules of Order. 4-H has encouraged me to take leadership positions in my club, such as club president and club treasurer. Public speaking has been a part of every skill I have learned in 4-H. The social aspect of public speaking has helped me to find my voice and be able to take initiative and leadership. As a homeschooler, I have made many friends in 4-H, and it was a safe learning space that I am glad I was able to have. Throughout my 11 years, I have learned many big things, like practical life skills, leadership skills, and social skills. I have also learned many little things, and have had many small experiences as well, such as different types of bread baking workshops and learning how to give my dog a massage. The little things are just as good and important as the big ones, and none of it would have been possible without the Walter Taylor 4-H building and my 4-H advisors and staff.
What's your name again?
Kendall Dane.
Kendall, and you're only 11?
I'm 18. I've been in 4-H for 11 years.
Okay, you look 11 because you look really good, but I like you speak. So when I need some speeches done, I'm going to call you, Miss Kendall.
Okay, thank you.
And my dog does need a massage as well. So you're pretty amazing listening to you. Very well said and very well spoken, Miss Kendall.
Thank you.
Madam
Thank
Chair,
you, Kendall.
Mr. DeSanto.
Lloyd and I have had the pleasure of listening to Kendall speak twice now. She was one of our scholarship applicants, and as we are today, we were quite impressed when we got to interview you back then as well.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
So you're not 11 years old. You've been in extension 11.
So Kendall, I came up through 4-H also, but I obviously missed the cooking part of it.
Oh, yeah.
I can make hot dogs though.
That's good.
Awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank
you
you.
for speaking very, very well.
Thank you.
So that just goes to show, out of the 452 youth that we educate throughout Pennington County, that's how much success they can have through this program. So with that, our request for the budget for the 2021 year is $90,615.24. The difference from the previous year is only $1,969 and that random 24 cents. And the only reason it is increased is based off of salary for our assistant.
I'm speaking for myself, but you guys are the diversion programs for the kids in Pennington County. So every dollar is well spent for what you guys do at the Extension office. I have believed that since I've been here. I really didn't know what you guys did until I went to visit and judge programs and things like that were in the Extension, and I was just amazed. And I was also on a committee for juvenile justice. And when I went into your guys' facility and learned what you guys did, like I said, you guys are the diversion for kids in Pennington County to keep them on the straight and narrow, plus the skills and the things you learn. It's something that Girls Club, when I was young, was kind of like the Extension program, and it taught me many skills and kept me mostly out of trouble. And it's pretty amazing. I was just like, wow, this is like Girls Club blown up on steroids. So pretty awesome. So every penny I believe that you guys spend for extension is well spent. Board? Any
Question.
questions?
Question relative to repairs and maintenance, and I don't have an issue with it. Just tell me what I mean, it's a fairly insignificant amount too. It's $1,700. What kind of repairs and maintenance do you need?
That's just our copier.
Oh, okay.
That's just what it falls under.
Very good.
We take care of their building if I'm
That's right.
correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Mark, you were going to say something?
Well, just so you know, extension building, sometimes when they have little wish lists and stuff like that, they are very thrifty and go through a lot of pain and suffering to try and get the equipment that they need. And we managed this year to get buildings and grounds. They were going to surplus some tables. They needed tables, so I think we got you how many? 10?
Was it 10? Somewhere
Awesome.
around there?
12 tables from that were going to get surplus, so we didn't have to buy new tables. We wound up with tables that were in good condition from buildings and grounds. So that's how they work down there. They make sure they watch their pennies.
Nice. Any other questions or comments?
Good
Madam
job.
Chair, I just want to say that I'm not that familiar with the group. Last year, I got the honors to go to that building and do art judge. Probably one of the hardest things I ever did. Thought that was going to be pretty easy, and I'd see the little kids come up, and you had to put a ribbon, and boy, thought yesterday was tough, but that was even tougher. But amazing group, and we need more people like you in programs like this during these trying times. So thank you for everything that you do.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. We're good.
Okay.
Way to go.
Look at
Thanks
this
for all
group.
of you
See all
coming and
these
backing her up.
dedicated women here? And that quiet one in the back, she isn't saying that you have anything to say, sister, today? Yes. You've been involved a long time, sister.
I won't come up and speak up front, but thank you all for your support.
Come on.
Thank you, guys.
Couldn't go without the support of people who have been there, who've walked as members and neighbors and our extension people.
Come up here, honey, and say all that, because, and maybe introduce your group that's here today that have put in their time with you and others.
Oh, gosh, well, I think you know the front.
What's your name?
Patty.
And how long you been in 4-H and helping with
I was 8
extension?
years old, and I won't tell you how old I am.
Okay.
I'll let you guess.
Just in case
See this
everybody
gray
doesn't know
hair?
that. Miss Patty is dedicated and has been dedicated to fighting for extension and 4-H programs for years, guys. And that's how I have got involved and got more involved was with Miss Patty showing me and telling me the things that you guys have done. So pretty amazing.
The lady in the back, Joyce Bowman, she was in extension in Fall River County when I was a member.
Wow.
So
Thank you, Miss
there-
Joyce.
there's a lifetime of dedication as well.
And
But thank each of you. Thank you who have come to represent the commissioners on the extension board. That means so much, because you are our sounding board too,
and the rest of the folks' names
that are on the extension.
that are here today?
Well, you know Kim,
Yep.
Dane, Mrs. Dane. You know this one? Yep. You know Jane, and
Yep.
of course Kendall.
Okay. Just in case
I
Ron
don't know
Ross
these
Connect or
gentlemen on
others.
the right.
Scott Guffey
Got it.
and John.
We'd welcome their input, though.
They're supporting you is why they're here.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Miss Patty,
Thank
for
you.
everything. All right, you guys are done today.
Have a great weekend.
Yep.
This is one of the few times extension takes up the whole.
Next, we have Natural Resources, Mr. Guffey.
Morning, Scott.
Morning. Scott
Scott.
Guffey, Pennington County Natural Resources Director. I got a number of budgets. Where do you want to start?
Does anybody have any questions on any of his budgets? That's the main thing.
I did do an increase in 615, the weed and pest budget, but it's outside the wage increases. It's all supported by increased revenue. Last couple of years, we've gotten more money from the federal government through the Forest Service agreements that we do to spray on their properties. And then now new this year, we got agreement with Buffalo Gap National Grasslands to spray on their property for the next 3 years. And then also BLM, Bureau of Land Management.
You're pretty tight on your budgets, Mr. Guffey, plus you raise a lot of this. Tell us too about your 5-year plan. I know you always have a lot of plans. Do you have like a 5-year plan or at least a couple-year plan that you're changing or doing things because that's what you do best?
Right. As far as weed and pest, we're continually looking at getting grants to target specific weed problems in the county. This year we got a salt, cedar, and Phragmites grant from State Weed and Pest Commission.
Is that a weed?
It is a weed.
Okay.
Salt cedar is a tree.
Sounds like a rock or a tree.
Salt cedar is a tree, obviously, shrub that'll invade our riparian areas and choke out the native species and then actually choke out the streams and the water use. And we have quite a bit of it on the Cheyenne. We've been battling for a number of years. And then Phragmites is a new one. It's a reed-looking plant that'll get quite tall and crowd out riparian areas as well. We have a little bit down by Wasta that's continuing to grow. So
One of these days I'm going to go with you and you're going to show me some weeds.
Yeah.
We keep saying that, but just it's interesting. I like rock hunting, so I like to learn about rocks, but it'd be neat to learn about some of the plants you always talk about.
We have we have such a diverse geology in the county and geography, and then we have a lot of visitors, so we have a wide variety of weeds that like this area as well. So we try to jump on any new ones that we have.
Tell us about the Gallagher study and how that's working for your department, because a lot of the commissioners have been asking other people.
It worked after I got together with John, and we did some title changes on some of our positions, and then readjusted where they're landing on Gallagher that you guys approved. And after we made those changes, I think it's going to work out pretty good for us.
There's 4, John.
The only thing we'll have to watch is I know our seasonal position entry level is at 1238 or something. I've been lucky the past several years when I get a seasonal, they generally come back, and that's who I try to hire, somebody that I know is going to come back for us. But hiring new ones, we'll have to see how competitive that wage is and what kind of applicants we get. Hopefully it will be, but I think the state's about at that. The city might be a little higher on their seasonals, so you just got to see how it falls. And
You get grants for that?
So in this one, I did bump 2. I did add 2 seasonal positions just because of our increased revenue. So if our revenue's not there, then I'm not going to hire those additional seasonals. So they're strictly revenue supported. But yeah, the grants, they do help pay for some seasonal staff. But then if we don't get them, if I don't have the work there, then I don't hire the seasonals. That's the nice thing about having seasonal employees. They're a little easier to come and go than a full-time benefited employee. So.
Scott, I know that you utilize grants over the years for different programs, and as being part of the member of the Black Hills Council of Local Governments, I know that you've been actively involved in that too. Mm-hmm. But is that a benefit to you as far as looking at grants and applying for grants?
Yeah, we haven't ran any through them yet since the county just rejoined with them, and I found out that they're a good resource to go to. I think as we get working more towards our Black Hills Resilient Forest Strategy, I think we could utilize them more on finding some good grants that would help us on that.
Super.
Scott, I noticed that maybe you wrapped it into something else, but under revenues,
Certainly could.
And I just want to point out that a third of Scott's budget is paid for, and a lot of it is his grant writing is where we come up with this money. He spends a lot of time writing grants, but one thing that I see missing in here is the funds that you make from the timber sales.
Yeah, that would be found on 616, our natural resources, and we call it sale of county property.
Oh.
That's how Cindy said it would be best to represent that.
Have you ever used PILT funds?
What one?
PILT?
Yeah, we use the Title III dollars.
Okay. Gary,
Yeah, as you probably are aware, I mean, one of the things we did with some of the PILT dollars yesterday was to commit those for the fire administration. And, you do cross over into a number of those areas. And obviously the PILT dollars come from the Forest Service to begin with in lieu of property taxes. So I would encourage you that as you move forward and look at budgeting and so forth, don't be afraid to ask for some of those dollars to be utilized for various things.
So there's a PILT fund and there's a Title III fund.
Yep.
And are you referring to the Title III funds?
No, I'm
Okay.
actually referring to, yeah.
Okay. And I'm not familiar with the PILT funds. Title III funds, I help administer those and do all our necessary paperwork on those. And those ones you have to be careful because they have to be used on Forest Service.
Right, yeah.
There's quite restrictions, but the PILT funds, yeah, if there's,
Actually, the PILT funds all come through into our general funds.
oh, okay.
And so it's not something that you have to be specific for. But some of the description in there of how you can use the funds, the direction that we receive from the feds and the state, certainly covers areas within your department, so.
Absolutely.
and it says for vital services. So if you have needs, not wants, we are looking at on this budget now on the needs of the department heads, and Gary's right. If you have a need for your department, maybe think about that and bring that forward during this budget time, because I believe, depending on what that number is, or if we have to do like a fund for him in a certain extent that he has to save up for a machine or something, same way, that these funds are used for vital services. PILT payments help local governments carry out or they carry out vital services. We get 1.86. A lot of that goes to the general fund, but I think we should use some of those dollars for these areas that it's supposed to be used for, like you and firefighting.
Well, the shaded fuel breaks definitely would be right in line with what comes from that fund.
And we were talking, there's been a big debate on the sustainable yield on the Forest Service.
Yeah.
Right.
And all sides can agree, one of our biggest issues is the pine regen coming in, and we're not getting enough pine regen treated. And that's where I could see our Title III dollars being used, and also Title II dollars that will be coming out, that I'm gonna ask for a lot of those Title II dollars that we can go in and treat that pre-commercial thin. And we can do that in-house, and we could hire additional seasonals to help get that. That's why we created a new position called a seasonal sawyer. So looking down the road, if we do get extra funds, we can hire these guys, and like we did with the pine beetle cutters, hire the Forest Service firefighters that get laid off in the wintertime. So they're perfect guys to pick up to do the seasonal pre-commercial thin.
Why I said that, board too, is Scott is so innovative at getting grants and getting the things he needs, but he also has other needs instead of wants that he could have, instead of filling out grants 24/7, which we all know how much time a grant does. At least we could, again, help him with some of those needs through some of those dollars. So again, Scott, we are doing budget times. If you come back with a need and then do a presentation to us, I don't know when that would need to be, Holly, but it'd be something that it would be time to do it, Scott, so.
Good to know.
And one other thing, Scott, I'm still not finding that revenue listed anywhere.
It would be the 101-616 revenue. 116.
There's no revenue page for.
Oh, really?
Have that in the book.
Yeah, it was part of my, should have been part of my, do you have my 615 revenues?
We have the 615s.
Yeah, it should have been on that same spreadsheet.
I must
It's a
have
different tab.
I have 616.
Yep.
I have them.
You do?
Natural Resources 616?
No, I
You
don't.
don't have the revenues, you only have the expenditures.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So the revenue's not huge, it's 10,000, and that's based on, and it just kind of counterbalances our services and fees. So if we do sell timber, then now we're starting to do it in-house, so we're capturing all that money instead of having a contractor do it.
Right.
The Sheridan Lake Road one, the Forest Service in there on the realignment, we did that removal. We did a direct sale with the Forest Service, and that was such a big project in a short time frame. We had a contractor come in and do that.
Oh,
We basically broke even on that timber there. I was hoping to make a little more money on it, but due to the time crunch, didn't have time to really bid it out. But they did leave a stretch there by Dakota Point and Taylor Ranch.
mm-hmm.
It was too boggy. They couldn't get into it, and it was kind of some rough terrain on the right side. So we're going to go in there this fall and winter, and we'll cut them and we'll deck them, and then we'll sell those decks direct, and we'll make more money that way.
Did you get that contract all squared away?
Yeah, finally. It was a challenge. And
Yeah, all right.
in hindsight, we should have just deferred it to the contractor to deal with it because, like I said, we're not making much money on it. I was thinking we'd make a little money, but we.
Scott, did they ever make a decision where they're going to put the stumps on private and Forest Service?
I know they were going to talk to Joe about burying some on the side there, and then I think the rest of them they're going to have to haul away. And
I know they were talking about hauling some to the Crow.
Yeah, they've been hauling them to
Quarry.
the Trolls, the ones on the private, and then.
And what did you say? You thought there was 3,000 or 4,000 stumps?
Yeah, but that's in the whole clear cut.
Right.
The only ones that they're concerned about removing which is going to be right on the road
Got it.
or
Okay.
or the.
So Scott, there's I know you were there when they were doing the presentation, but there's that company that's coming into town to turn basically our deadfall into energy.
Mm-hmm.
Wonder if we could get them to remove or to take all those stumps.
Yeah, I know Baker is taking
they'll
doing
grind them?
slash, but it's got to be dried out.
Start today.
By the time they want it removed, it's not going to be dried out enough.
Gotcha.
Some of that stuff that's remaining outside the limits that they're not dealing with, we can probably get to Baker's because we're going to have to deal with that later because we're doing the shaded fuel break along there once they're done with the road. So
Has that company started up yet?
yeah, they're taking now this is Baker. They're taking the old slash piles and utilizing them.
Remember that?
On the forest. So
Okay,
actually-
but there was a new company.
Yeah,
that was-
I don't know what the latest on
about
that one
that?
is.
Can't remember the name of it.
The list
Yeah,
will be
I
going
can't remember who
through
was
today
even
that we're
talking about it.
It was at the Forest Service meeting up in Custer that we went to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'll have to do some more.
I can't remember the guy's name. He was sitting to my left,
Yeah.
big, kind of a tall, dark-haired guy, but he was talking about that business wanting to move here. And
Mm-hmm. I think they're from.
there's a company that wants to come here and basically take all of our slash piles, and they're going to grind it up and turn the, I guess I really don't know the process, but they're going to extract fuel from the ground up.
I remember hearing about that.
Really?
Yeah.
No burning.
About that, remember
Right.
a while ago.
Great.
Yeah,
Well,
there's
Ron
been
Ross
a few.
Connect, if you go to his area, it's real slash heaven.
Yeah, there's going to be, that's another issue. There's a lot of.
I was looking
slash
for
on
rocks over there, I was like, holy cow. So Holly, if he wanted to come back with needing some of the PILT money for his needs, when would he have to do that?
If it's for 2021 budget, Cindy would like you guys to schedule a special meeting on the 30th
Okay,
so she can get all the changes from today incorporated in
what day is that, Holly, the 30th?
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
This Tuesday?
No,
next Tuesday, or 2 Tuesdays
Tuesday
from
after
now.
next.
2 weeks, okay. What time?
9 a.m. if possible. That way she can present all the changes from tomorrow, and if Scott has another one that he could prepare the info by that date, she can have it all ready to go by the provisional in July.
Yeah, probably before that date, Scott, so we
Yeah.
can see what you're doing, but
And I don't know if, because I know the Title II dollars are going to be announced here, and there's 300,000 built up in that. So I'm sure we can get a large share of that,
Okay.
which will be able to do a lot of work for us. I probably won't
and it'll
buy
be
for those
20,
built ones this year.
2021 is what you're
Yeah, and
looking at,
that's
Scott.
when those Title II dollars will have to be
Yeah.
spent too. So,
Well, we're not gonna make you take
How
the
you
money,
like
Scott.
He's actually turning down money.
I don't want to be too greedy here. If fire's got a use for it or something like that. But
Yeah.
down the road, I mean, to continue on what we can get started with is built with
Think about
the Title II dollars.
Nice. Any other question for Scott?
I got two more that I just wanted to touch base on.
Okay.
The predator control budget 166. It did bump up, not by a lot, and that is basically to pay for the state trapper who takes care of the coyote issues and stuff like that for mainly out east. And it's based on the USDA's Department of Agriculture's census they do every 5 years. So our cattle numbers went up and our sheep numbers went down, but there's a formula they come up with, and that'll be good till it's good for 5 years. So that number will be good for till 2026.
So I don't suppose, Scott, that we're eligible with our trapping for the, what's it called, bounty?
The counties can enact a coyote bounty if they want,
They can?
but you would have to pay for it. But any county can enact.
No, I'm asking if you're doing some trapping, right?
No, I'm
Weed and
not.
pest?
We don't do any trapping. We when they had that tail bounty deal with where you could get the live traps.
Yeah.
I put my name in for 3 traps, and I got them out at the shop there. And if anybody landowner wants to use them, we'll lend them out to them. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, we don't do any trapping.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
And then the other one I want to point out is conservation districts. They're not here today. I didn't tell them about it just because they didn't increase anything. I am working with them on a project for West Pennington, where they're looking to the drainage ditches out in the valley, the different irrigation ditches, to
Nice.
get them under pipeline, so they're not open air. That back when we had our big West Nile outbreaks, we identified those irrigation districts as a major breeding ground because of all the seeps and leaks in them. So I put in for the Department of Health's mosquito grant program for $20,000 to get pipeline for that project. So
How awesome is
I haven't
that?
heard
They've been
back on
needing
it
some
yet,
help
but-
on that ditch.
Would
but
that
that'll
include,
be, what's that?
would that include the Hawthorne ditch?
The first one they're looking at is the Saint Germain, the one closer to Computa,
Yeah.
out that way. Yep. But then, yeah, all of them they're going to eventually look at. But that would be big for reducing mosquito numbers for us.
That would also end our need to have the Hawthorne ditch contract for cleaning.
Yeah, it would really save that.
Once that's enclosed, that's $4,000 a year we don't have to spend.
Yeah. Yep.
So did anybody have any questions on the conservation districts? 'Cause Scott has helped take those over and keep those guys in line.
Yeah, and if you notice, we kind of got them more equal. East was
Balanced.
getting quite a bit more than now they're both equal.
Well, and that was on Scott's suggestion. That wasn't our commission. Scott wanted to work with them and, so they could keep moving forward. Because I think if they didn't have Scott at that point, we were going to think about dissolving some of it because it was just getting crazy as.
Well, they didn't quite understand what you guys wanted, and and it worked both ways. So I think with me coming in, I can better explain the budget process to them.
And they're good
out there.
volunteers to help you with some of
Yeah.
your projects,
Yeah,
Scott, so that's
no,
even better.
They do wonderful work
Yeah.
throughout the county for conservation,
So
so.
they are on our subsidy list for conservation again this year, if anybody had any questions of Scott. Oh, they're good.
Good.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
I appreciate your work with the Black Hills National Forest and all that you do. I mean, that,
Yeah,
it's good to sit down with someone who's working with that every day and talking with these people. I appreciate it.
yeah, we've built up a good working relationship with them, and it benefits the county because we get the increased contracts for spraying and doing, our fuels breaks projects, and, yeah, so,
Thanks, Scott.
you bet.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you, guys.
So you do have a list here, board, the FYI 2020 budget directives, decisions.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner Drews?
Did we talk about, I didn't realize we were talking about a budget hearing on June 30th at 9 a.m.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with meeting on that day, but 9 a.m., I've got an hour meeting starting at 9 a.m. that day.
Okay.
So I don't know how long we're talking about as far as a budget meeting.
Is the meeting here or somewhere else?
It's at my house, so it'll be a Zoom meeting that I have at my house.
So can we do 10, Holly?
We could do whatever time. We could even do the afternoon if you wanted. I know you guys don't like that in the middle of the day, but
Let's do 10.
Let's do
10
10.
o'clock?
Let's do
That sounds
10:30.
okay.
Give Gary a chance to
Yeah,
get here.
because you want to
Thank
be
you.
involved, Gary.
1
you
o'clock?
make that as a motion.
10,
What day is that?
10,
On what day?
30th.
30th. I move to,
30th?
Hold on a sec. DeSanto. Lloyd, you good with the 10 o'clock? Then?
I'm good with that, but
Okay.
I'd like the afternoon, but it don't matter to me.
Okay,
You do what? Like to have food?
afternoon.
You? Oh, after.
move to
Okay,
start
so
our
10 o'clock on the 30th?
Yes,
June 30th
Tuesday,
meeting, Tuesday at 10:30.
2 weeks from now.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by DeSanto, second by LaCroy. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. Okay. Do we want to go in order, or do you guys have a preference what you want to talk about first?
Do you want me to go through the subsidies quick, the library contracts, contingency, all of that? The only one that I do know is coming is Jeffries, Ron Jeffries with the fair. But I told him 10:30, so we haven't been able to get a hold of him.
Let's go ahead and talk about them, just in case anybody has any concerns, Holly.
Okay, we can
Okay.
do that quick.
Let's do contingency first and how much you put in that, Miss Holly. And where's that at?
That one is in the commission budget tab.
Okay. Under commission, you said.
And you can see that that one is authorized by statute, and what the past history is of what has been spent out of that fund. It's been 165,000 for the last couple of years. I did feel comfortable dropping it down to 150. If there's some other stuff coming up, like the treasurer's office or buildings and grounds, or some other thoughts, we may want to consider adjusting that.
I think the average has been 150, hasn't it, Miss Holly?
165.
Where am I at?
It really varies from year to
Yeah.
year what you actually spend out of it.
I don't know why I always
Oh,
thought
under
it
the
was
commission.
160 or 150. It's not, it's never been 150.
Page.
I think 150 has been good. We've been averaging 165. We're looking at possibly maybe, what did we talk about earlier? Some security that Mike was talking about with finishing up. That could either come out of that budget or this, or if something happens, I think.
Do we have money left this year of our contingency? Holly, how much is left?
We haven't spent anything in 2020 yet.
Yeah.
I have to ask you something again. The mics and making this thing more efficient. Holly needs cameras. It was going to cost us like 10.
So Mike
There.
Cool, you have a sheet in front of you from Mike Cool that was in your separate pile. That looks,
For wipe down?
Yep.
Okay,
that you have separately.
okay.
That is his 2020 costs, that 49,000.
Okay, wow.
So that could be taken out of contingency in 2020 since we haven't spent anything yet there.
Well, we are getting, because of COVID, he can get money back on that, right, Holly?
At some point, yes.
Yeah,
Possibly, yeah.
yeah,
But Madam Chair, can I speak to that?
sure.
I think, when we asked the departments to commit to roll back basically 10%, I mean, all of our departments, I think did a very admirable job in doing that. At the same time, Buildings and Grounds did that also. But at the very same time, we started asking them to do more.
Yep.
And to spread their people out. And so I think that we've got to take care of Buildings and Grounds for the remainder of this year because of the additional commitment. And they haven't, I haven't had any departments indicate any dissatisfaction with what buildings and grounds have done. And I know they've gone way above and beyond, and they've been in the, working in the areas where if there was going to be any hot spots for us at all, it would be there. And they've gone ahead and done it. And so I'm really committed to supporting what Mike needs here for the remainder of this year.
Well, then there's only 27 weeks so far, so that 49,000 is only
Yeah.
gonna, that's what he spent, and he's gonna continue. And then if
Yep.
it opens, it's even bigger. But here's the other thing. If we do get money, if we do, it's going into the general fund anyway. It's not going to, at this point, what I'm saying. We have to disperse it to these departments. So,
But
I would-
and Gary's absolutely right. What I guess I'd suggest is that we put this on the next regular board meeting on the 7th, and you guys can act on that, because you're right, you could hold them to an 8% cut, you could hold them to a 5% cut for buildings and grounds, and that would take care of the $2020.
how much did he cut? What was, Cindy, do you know his percentage, or out of his 10%, how much did he cut out of his budget? Do you know that, Miss Cindy? Whoops,
You're
no
on
sound.
mute, Cindy.
You sound good, but we can't hear you.
You're on mute. Unmute.
My lips.
Miss Cindy, we can't hear you.
How about that?
Good.
There you go.
It was
I was
the other
trying
way.
Star Trek, and that didn't work for me. Sorry. I do not have the adjusted budgets from the departments.
I can find that dollar amount, it's in my office.
Well, we know that he reduced staff by at least 2 to accommodate, the budget cut and so forth. And
Well, maybe we give him back not the 49, but the 10%, because he keeps telling us that he just can't function in what he's got now.
Well, my suggestion is that I think we go through today, we say this is what we want, she's gonna prepare the budget, then we can determine where that money comes from after we, because we got a whole
2020.
list of, you know what I'm saying?
Kind of
2020.
talking apples and
2020.
oranges,
Yeah, okay.
though.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're gonna do something, this not 2021 budget,
Yeah,
it's
he doesn't
2020.
know what to submit for 2021 yet. He just knows what 2020's needs are, so
Yeah,
really to just throw a number in for 2021, we don't know what it is yet.
but we do know, okay, so the bottom line, we know it's 49,183. We don't know what his other budget is. We can put the 49,183 on the next commission meeting, plus Holly can get the 10%. So if you guys want to do more than 49,183, you can, off his 10% cuts, or you can leave it at 49,83.
our next regular meeting isn't for another 2.5 weeks, and I'd like to see him be able to move forward with some of this immediately.
Like, why couldn't he move forward? I mean, I guess,
Well, he just needs to know that he's got our commitment that he's going to be able to.
well,
Oh, yeah.
Holly can say, we're committed at this time, and we're going to bring it up at the 49,183, but the board would like to know what your 10% cut was.
Yeah,
You
and
see
that's
what I'm
fine.
saying, Gary?
That's fine, yeah.
And you're right, the commitment is the whole thing, is that he's not going to go through the next 2 weeks going, oh, Jesus, now it's at 49, it's going to be 65 next week, so.
I was confused. I thought this was for 2021, but if this is for the rest of this year,
Yes, sir.
I agree with Gary. Maybe we should make that motion, so he knows for sure we approved 2 temps. Then we figure out the money. We could do it out of contingency or his budget. We can figure that out at the next meeting.
Well, I don't see why you do it twice, because what I'm saying is that's only 27 weeks. That's the 49. Let's see what his 10% cut is, and then maybe we're giving him back his 10%, because then we'd be giving him, he's not, you see moving forward, Lloyd, what I'm saying? So if we say we're committed to the 49, that's what we're bringing forward, and that we'd like to see what his 10% cut was.
10% is going to be about $80,000.
Yeah, but that's why I'm saying we might just end up giving him his 80,000 back, because that's only 27 weeks. We're only helping him out for the last 2 weeks. It's going to get worse.
So John's got good ears today to tell Mike that it looks like he's got the support to go out and do 2 temps,
Okay,
one way or another, right? That's what you're looking for, Gary?
Yep.
okay. And we'll look at, and we'll put the 10% on there and decide then.
Okay.
Okay.
Commissioners, John Morrow, Pennington County HR. I would love to give him that message. Something to consider as well. I believe his savings were built upon a reduction in headcount because we've lost at least 2 custodians and possibly a third.
Yep.
I 4 as of this morning. I think rather than looking at seasonal temporary help, we just suggest that he bring people back on. And I don't know, I'm just speaking.
We'll let him do what he needs
Yeah.
to do, John. Yeah.
Rather than say seasonal temps to do this cleaning, we might just let him, whatever he needs to do to staff that back up.
Yeah, I don't think he furloughed anyone, so he needs to go through probably the hiring process if he's
Yep.
gonna do anything different than the temps.
Get
Bet.
fully
Thank
staffed.
you.
And Holly and John, you can get that information for us, so when we look at the 49 and the 10% and basically the bottom line, you'll get all that information for us but John, do tell him that, we'd like to move forward on what he's thinking.
Yeah, I was confused.
Holly,
They
what was the
cool with
law?
that?
Yep.
Who did
Okay.
he lose today?
He just told me this morning when I talked to him that he has 4 open FTEs right now.
Holy cow.
I believe it.
Yep. Nobody wants to clean.
Okay, so.
Okay, so is that on here with building? Is his on here, Holly? Mike's on the list of 12?
Yeah,
numbers
Madam
that?
Chair, if we could finish
Oh, number
these
2.
couple of subsidies here and then you guys can go through your list.
No, I was just crossing one off. that
Oh,
was
got
named.
it.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry, we got off track a little bit.
The next one I'll mention quickly to the board is libraries. You have all of their information in the libraries tab with the summary of what their budgets have been since 2015. They are all under annual contract now, which states that they will increase by the CPI or 3%, whichever is less. So each one of those was increased by the 1.7% for 2021 contracts.
Cool.
About to get one.
So nothing else
They're well
there.
used. Any questions on the libraries?
Nope.
Okay,
The next tab is either outside requests or outside organizations or a subsidy tab. We had 2 sets of tabs going this year. So under that section, we had 2 new requests for funding for 2021. The first one was from Live Inc., which is requesting $1,440 from the county to help support 2 individuals that they are servicing, and then a $5,000 request from Black Hills Works. So if that's something that the board is interested in funding for either one of those, it would take a motion because they are not included in the provisional that you have.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner.
I think some of you guys remember me talking about this last year about when they did give it the presentations, when we're doing small amounts like this. I guess I really haven't had a chance to read through these, but when you're looking at 1440, I just think we get for a bigger bang for our buck, we give to the Care Campus and some of the others. That's where
Yep.
the good portion of our money goes, and that's what we focus on.
That's the bottom line. When we first came in here a few years back, we stopped doing subsidies because we are subsidies. We are basically Care Campus. We are areas that we have programs already that we need to fund, and putting our money towards other programs didn't make sense when Care Campus and our other programs had needs. So does anybody believe they need to fund either of these?
I agree with Commissioner LaCroy.
You want to make a motion to deny?
I'd make the motion to
I'm
deny.
gonna second it.
Motion to deny Live Inc. and Black Hills Workshop. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries. The second was by Drews.
The next sheet in there would be for GIS with the city of Rapid City. Slight increase for 2021. They would like to move forward with increasing that every year by the CPI. So they're using 2019 CPI for their suggested increase for this year, so.
And how much
That one is an
increase?
$1,800 increase over last year.
And they're pretty amazing, guys.
Part of this.
Well, every
all-
emergency department relies on them.
Oh, is
You
it?
have a paper on it in our book, Holly?
Yep, it's right behind the two new requests.
Under outside?
Tab?
Yep, outside
it's paper
or
clip.
subsidies.
Outside organizations, guys. That's a no-brainer for me.
I move to approve.
Okay. Moved by Ross Connect,
Second.
second by DeSanto. Questions?
Explain that to me again.
GIS?
GIS is
Oh.
the Geographic
That's rapid map that-
Informational Systems.
Yeah.
That's what the county fire department, sheriff, they all
Okay.
rely on that GIS
Okay.
as well as the equalization.
Is that a cost share? I can't remember. Or is it just ours and the city helps us?
No, the city runs it.
Okay.
We pay for the service,
And they've been
basically.
updating and doing a bunch of different things the last few years that have been pretty awesome. And then they had
All the
somebody
aerial
fly over and,
photographs, yeah.
yep, if you notice your rapid maps are getting better. What?
Equalization, I think she's one.
Yeah.
Everybody, planning and zoning,
Planning and zoning.
if we didn't have that GIS, we'd really be hurt.
It would be
That's how they
bad.
figure out the distances between the property.
What are you doing here, Kevin? We don't have any crests from you. We're not getting any.
Okay, so then after that is the healthcare centers. We have funded them for really, really long time.
That's a senior?
Statutes
or
are there. No, Community Health Center and Behavior Management Systems. So
is that mandated? Okay,
basically,
Yeah.
if we don't, we have to pay a lot more.
okay. And how about the senior center? We're doing those guys, or the senior transportation. How much was that again, Holly?
One quick before we get there, Deb, sorry. The next one in that book is the public advocate contract, which is our conflict office for the public defenders. They have requested no change in 2021. They're at 345,000 a year, and that is also an annual contract.
So Holly, they, like I said, the attorneys and them and other had some huge non-used money at this point, but that doesn't mean because that might pop right in once court system starts going. Where does that money go at the end of the year? Does it go back into them or general fund?
This is a contract. We pay them 345,000 regardless.
Yeah.
Whether we use it or not, it's a retainer.
What I'm saying is if they use 150,000 out of 345 and then this year, and then we just pop up and give them 345 next year, we don't reduce it because we already paid them for only half a year?
No,
We usually come out ahead, because 2 years ago, I think we actually increased it because we were short.
Significantly, the case numbers
Yeah,
were
case
pretty
numbers.
crazy.
Did you see the numbers they haven't used yet? Same with-
That's A&N and court
Ex-
appointed
Yeah.
and the court's budgets themselves. I don't know that they're seeing reduced caseloads, but we can certainly find out.
I thought that they weren't on that paper. I thought I saw it somewhere.
Those are different court budgets.
Well, all the court cases and everything, I don't know if they even used half the budgets this year, you guys. So if we're contract with Fifely and those guys too, then they just get it even if they don't use it?
I'd
For Dakota
caution
Plains,
before
yeah.
making any cuts, because you just don't know.
Well,
I mean, it's.
I'm not gonna cut them, I'm just saying, Lloyd, and then the other thing is are they getting paid back some COVID money and stuff for their changes as well?
I believe that's the case, Deb. I believe we contracted with them for 345. If they only use 125, they get 345.
Same with the million something from the, or more from the, haven't been used, okay. I just,
Two different things.
I know, but I'm just saying that's some
Hard pill to
huge
swallow,
cost.
but then on the other hand, the first year that I was a commissioner, they spent like 460 something. And
I'm
so
just saying,
Yeah.
so none of
I mean,
those should be
it
raising
winds
this
up-
year?
It winds up,
I think the
hopefully
courts
over a
do.
10-year period of time, washing.
Yeah, because even with the higher meth cases, and this is what I understand from the uses of this is public defender can't handle them all. If there's multiple people, 3 people, they got to get 2 from outside source. Lawyers, they can't all be done up. It's the defendants. It's kind of
And
complicated.
Dakota Plains is paying the attorney's salaries pretty much,
Yeah.
so, I mean, those people are still working and earning a paycheck, is what that 345 goes to, so.
And we have actually asked, I think, Lloyd, correct me if I'm wrong, we asked Dakota Plains to bring on additional attorneys because of our increase in meth arrests.
Well, we're also looking at doing a separate conflict, remember, area for, I don't know if it's public defender or state's attorney. Do you remember that, Gary?
Public defender.
Rick
Public
hasn't
defender,
brought that
but at this
forward.
point, based on those numbers I'm seeing on their papers, like I said, they still have people working, and maybe those cases and just all will come up in October because it's been COVID and now they gotta do all the cases, so.
Madam Chair, I do think that we get the best bang for the buck with the contract with them for the 345,000. Does a couple of things. It gives, we know what we're going to have to pay, and at the same time, they know what they're going to receive during the course of the year. And this is a lot better system, I think, than being individually billed for their services.
Yeah.
A lot cheaper for us, I think.
And I understand that in a normal case, that's totally right, and I'm with you on that, but I'm saying, when you get some pretty, you need to see the numbers, I guess, and maybe Holly can show them to you. We had them all sent to us, or in our box, but that haven't been used, and it's been 6 months, so that's why I said, and they're having increase in costs. I'd like to see at the end of the year how much they had left,
I could,
so.
I understand what you're talking about, Deb, for this year, but next year it could just,
Yeah,
if that's what we're, 2021.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
and then the last one would be the senior support, and they did not request, well, they did actually request an increase on that one. I put it in the provisional as the flat 25,000. Their request was for 30, or at a minimum of 27. So that would be one that the board should make a motion on what level you want to fund them at.
And I'll speak to that because that's the committee that I'm on. And about 3 months ago, about the time the virus hit, we lost an oven over at the Minna-Lucian. That oven provides your meals for Meals on Wheels, which is one of the services of PCCA, as well as transportation for seniors. So that the oven, and then just our anticipation with the increase for Meals on Wheels, I think that's why they went for the 30,000. I explained to them that we were looking at 10% cuts. So what their methodology was to take the 30,000, knock off 10%, come to 27, and say, well, if we can get 25, we'll be happy. So anyhow, it's one of the committees that I really like, and the money's not being wasted. We vote every invoice or check that we write, it's going to a good cause.
I think the 30,000 is a bad thing because it's something we don't provide, and that's why not just this board, but other boards have said, and that's why we are still funding it. It's something that we do not provide in the county to help seniors, so it would be money well used. And if they weren't frugal with their money and using it and showing us where they used it, it'd be different. But in this case, I think it's something well used, so I wouldn't be opposed to the 30 unless the board wants to keep them at 25 or 27.
I'll make a motion to stay the same as last year at 25.
Second.
You didn't want 30, Ron, because they're good?
I'd go for the 27, but I told them that we're gonna have to take the cut just like everybody else.
Okay, I got it.
So could I amend that to 27? Okay, I'll make the motion that we,
It's okay with the seconder.
what's that?
I said it's okay with the seconder if you make
You okay with
amendment.
27?
I guess.
Okay, motion by Ron, second.
Jumped in on it because he was going to keep it the same.
Yes. Ron, and then second by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. My big thing, DeSanto said, if they didn't invoice it and keep track of it, it'd be a little bit different than I'm just guessing at
They will
25,
definitely appreciate it.
so. And we've been talking about transportation in the county, not just for seniors, but
Oh, I know.
remember, and what those costs were huge.
And our new, our treasurer for the PCCA is now on the Hill City Council,
Wow,
so
So,
so you can get some more money off the Hill City
Dale.
people,
oh,
right,
householder.
Ron? So you can get some more money off the Hill City
We'll do the
people.
best that we can under the circumstances.
Okay, so that's all I have for you for outside and subsidy requests, so you can go through your other list, and hopefully Mr. Jeffries will be here soon.
Okay, number one is the one Cindy was talking about, that we should take the CPI, the stored CPI for.
for
And,
unorganized.
and it'd be right at the front of your paper where it says county fire, libraries, and everything else. Cindy, can you reiterate why we should take, the CPI, stored CPI, and growth on there?
On the library fund,
Unorganized road.
Unorganized, sorry, Miss.
unorganized road fund is the one you're looking at, because we also need to talk about that on the library fund, so please don't let me forget that.
Okay,
On the unorganized road, yes, I did recommend that you take all tax dollars that are available. So that would include any stored CPI. It would equate to like 20 cents per 100,000 in a levy. And I think it's worth it, just considering where we are with the need for roads. And I know you guys did the wheel tax, but I still think every little bit's going to help highway.
I'd make the motion to approve that.
motion by
Second.
LaCroy, second by Drews, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Let's go to library. Miss Cindy,
Okay, hold on just one second. Got to catch up with my notes.
you're okay, honey.
Okay, then when it comes to the library fund, that will not change the levy at all because we'll just use less of the opt-out dollars. And what that does is down the road, it allows it will keep our the use of our opt-out dollars down a little bit lower, because as we build on the general tax dollars, those can go up by CPI and growth every year. So if we keep that at the max, it will let us use less of the opt-out, and that pushes having to do a second opt-out off farther down the road.
I guess that was my question. Remember, when you lower an opt-out also, if we needed more, we'd have to do a second opt-out, or, because remember, we did that on the fire, we lowered it, and they said you never can raise that opt-out unless you do a
New one.
election.
Madam Chair,
Yes, yes, ma'am.
if you have an opt-out, which we do in library for, it's 188,200, you can use all or half of that in any given year. Just because you reduce what you use this year does not reduce what's available to you next year.
Okay, so that's different than the
Referring to
fire
is the general
because
tax dollars, yeah.
they actually changed the levy, not the, or they
Correct.
changed.
Yeah.
What did the fire do,
changed
so?
The dollar amount request
So
for
when
the
you,
regular tax dollars.
so when you change the dollar amount request, that's where they, because I wasn't getting how they got their levy down. Somebody requested less money or,
Correct.
and that
Yep.
lowered the levy on the,
Right, and then the next year you can only increase your dollar amount request by the
CPI.
CPI and the growth.
Yeah.
now I got where that was the issue the whole time. And I should have known then. I probably listened to it, but it wasn't soaking in, but thank you for that.
We're not gonna make the same mistake twice here.
Right.
So Cindy, on the library, are we talking about using stored CPI and what's there for CPI?
And growth.
Yes,
And-
stored
and growth.
CPI growth and, yeah, current year CPI, stored CPI and growth.
$16,099 would be the motion.
No, the motion actually to utilize growth CPI and stored CPI.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
Madam Chair.
There's been a motion and a second. Commissioner DeSanto.
Cindy, On this, it's actually showing that there's a $3.20 change per 100,000.
Yes, that's correct. This year, there is an increase in the library levy. Last year, we chose to use a little bit out of the reserve on library. So we reduced the amount that we took of the opt-out, which did lower the levy. This year, we're bringing it back up because we need those dollars. We don't want to reduce the reserve any lower.
Okay.
Well, we do have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carried. And then
I think we dealt with building grounds.
number
didn't
2, yep. Holly, we got number 2 done, right?
We don't know what 2021's numbers will be, if he needs anything, but we'll address that going forward if we need to.
Okay, and then,
we?
go
I
ahead.
thought we agreed to get them up to staffing levels
Yeah, for 2020.
for 2020.
Yep, you're good there.
Okay.
Yep. And then additional 5,100 for Chambers projector. It's not a
I-
want, it's actually a need, it's going out, guys.
Is it going, I mean, because that's part of what our contingency's for, is if something like that happens, but then to get it ordered and in and put it installed before it goes out is probably really more important than,
Right.
You talking 2020 or 2021
I
budget?
was gonna replace it in 2021.
So we're good until
I
then?
can't this year with the 10% cut, and we've had an increase in insurance.
well, we got
so-
we got contingency.
You have contingency, yeah.
I would suggest
Is that your
we
motion?
order it and get it done this year, yeah.
Then let's skip this one, and I'll put it on a upcoming commission meeting agenda.
Okay.
Everybody
Thank
okay
you,
with that?
Holly.
Yep.
Okay. Got that done. And we don't want to change anything, and everything else working good in here. We're not going to find out next year we have something else that needs Joan or Holly replaced.
The only thing I need to do is we replaced one camera, and I've got to do the other one, and that's about 5,000, I think.
Okay, this is my thoughts. If we're gonna do the projector, and I know you've had problems with those two cameras, let's all get them on the same year. And get them the same style model, because they start changing every year. So, I mean, if you're gonna do the projector, let's get this camera.
So bring those requests to the next board meeting, Holly, so we're not behind on the game, but we're ahead.
Yep, absolutely.
Because we're doing equipment and stuff for other people that are needs, not just wants, so. Okay, then we have EM Assistant Director wage increase. That was what he talked about. John. Emergency Management, right?
Morning, Commissioners. Again, John Morrow with Pennington County HR. I did visit with Dustin this morning about that process. We believe we have a solution that will be appropriate, but if you want to take action as that is a standalone item now, that would simplify the process for him.
No, go ahead.
But, so what the discussion was this morning is to actually appear before the board in an executive session, have that discussion about current pay, make the adjustment now, and then it would simply rotate over into the Gallagher study if that's implemented again for 2021. So it won't require any additional discussion other than an executive session discussion. Potentially at the 7/7 meeting, we talked about it. We've got a week and a half or 2 weeks before I have to have the documents to Holly and get copies to you, so.
So you're gonna have no different thing happen, it's just gonna happen through executive session.
It would,
Madam
yeah,
Chair.
so we're gonna be seeking approval from the board during executive session, but with actual implementation date, I believe, of October 1st or November 1st this year.
We're talking 6,000 from a grant, 3,000 from the city increase, and 3,000
Yeah,
from
so
not increase, but.
this actually doesn't even take those into consideration. It's just gonna be a request for a wage change based upon current structure. The funding pieces of it, he'll be able to work behind the scenes, and it won't even be part of this discussion.
Madam Chair,
Sounds good.
I agree with it being in executive session, because I think wages and changes like that, that's where that discussions need to be held.
It was not included in his 2021 numbers?
It
Or
is
it
not.
was?
It wasn't,
I'm
and then
not certain of that. I don't know that
Holly.
it was. I think this was in addition to.
he brought his budget, And then what he did is, then he brought his request after the budget, just like some of the other people. So now it's gonna go in executive session.
Understand, I just was trying to get a grasp on, do
Yeah,
you guys
that'll have
need
to-
to make the motion to adjust the
Yeah,
2021
2021 will need
numbers?
to be adjusted.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
And then again, we'll have that information for you at the next
We
meeting.
can always take it away.
Yeah.
I guess that's my thoughts.
Okay, Public Defender, General Fund Software Reserve. What is that, Ollie?
so that is the one that, Lori Wager spoke to the board about yesterday of needing to get Public Defender off the software that they're on because it's not stable. I have not heard back on what the number is that they need. But Cindy and I worked a little bit last night on some scenarios and we felt it appropriate to put in 50,000.
Is that in the Public Defender's budget?
We would need to establish a software reserve in the general fund public defender's budget.
So they'd be adjusting 50,000 for Public Defender?
Yes, so if that's something the board is wanting to do, we would need a motion for that.
So how does everybody else do that when they put it in their budget? Do they,
Same thing with the sheriff, he'll put in the 100,000 and then we'll transfer it. Lori talked about that yesterday with the servers, she put 65 in. Cindy does it with her software package, I think she does 40 or 50 as well. So PDO and treasurer are both ones that we would like the board to consider establishing a software reserve for them in 2021.
okay, and then they didn't put it in their budget and they didn't know this was coming forward?
They knew it was coming forward, I don't know if they knew the mechanism to do it yet.
Or their amount?
Correct.
Right. This is something that really goes through IT, so they wouldn't, the Public Defender's Office wouldn't have had the information basically of what their need is.
Well, and Lori said yesterday that Shannon had talked to Cindy, and Shannon actually talked to me about it, and we realized it was two people that didn't really know what they were talking about, trying to talk.
Yeah.
And so I was the one that said, we don't typically do it for software, not really understanding the magnitude of what he was trying to do.
So what's the software for again?
I believe it's their whole client
It is.
management system.
Madam Chair. Oh, Cindy has something.
Cindy, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, whatever they do also feeds into liens, and so
Yeah.
that improves that process. We would definitely support them getting new software.
Thank you, that helps, Cindy, instead of,
Yeah.
seems like if you need something, it seems like you put it in budget, explain it, and not have the IT come, but
Madam Chair.
it's all good.
I'd make a motion that we put 50,000 into the reserve, software reserve,
For Public
for
Defender.
Public Defender.
Second.
Motion made by Drew, second by Ross
Madam
Connect.
Chair. I think that number can be adjusted later if we have to. It probably wouldn't have to be adjusted by much, but we'll have a better idea as we go along as to what that actual number is. So.
Okay. So there's been motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. State's Attorney deferred costs and absorbing MacArthur grants.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroy.
This, I'm in support of because these are proven programs that are working, that have been brought forward. I would bring up the examples of the Annie Mae Foundation giving us funding for the juvenile diversion program over 11 years ago, and how we reduced the numbers of the juvenile detention center and actually have a reception center that takes in and defers juveniles from actually getting put in JDC. This is the type of work that these guys are doing. It's proven across the state. And part of the board has done some good evaluation. Last year, Kevin Tomes here with the MacArthur and how they've reduced the request from MacArthur last year on some of the programs because they didn't feel it was appropriate. So I think these are some of the things that are working. And one thing I've found with some of these programs is you got to have somebody to run them. You can't rely on volunteers, and I think they've got a proven track record.
Mr. Drews?
Madam Chair, I don't necessarily disagree with Commissioner LaCroix, but I'm not sure that that's exactly where the dollars should go from the MacArthur programs, and I would like to see us have a meeting with Health and Human Services, State's Attorney, probably with the Sheriff's Office, and try to determine where those dollars actually should be placed. I'm not opposed to the programs. I think that maybe there's a better place for that money to be actually operating from.
Thank you. And we just talked about subsidies and funding subsidies because we have Health and Human Service and other programs, weightlifting and things like that, and 7 Directions aren't bad programs by any means. But again, if we're going to start adopting programs in different departments, that's not what they do. They're state's attorneys, they're sheriffs. If he does programs that are diversion and they start a RAIG program and it's helping through the sheriff's office meeting and they're implementing that program because it does certain things, well, you can say that to most programs, but we're coming down to, again, how many other programs like 7 Directions or the weightlifting or anything else is out there? And so we're just picking and chooses, again, where I truly believe Health and Human Services and the Sheriff's Office and stuff, like you said, Gary, they have programs, they're doing different things. We do have One Heart coming on. They're going to have a bunch of programs. My bottom line is how many programs do we need in Rapid City, and how many taxpayers need to fund those programs at this point, unless it's something, like I said, when I've seen the history and the things on diversion programs like Ray and certain things, they've been doing those things for over 5 years. They haven't just, picked some programs to put in their areas. And when MacArthur wants to fund some of that stuff, that's good. That's not taxpayer dollars.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner
I agree with you. I'm kind of where Mark was the other day. If we spend $1 for a program that might eventually save us $2, then it's an investment and we come out ahead. But it's, as I told Mark, show us how we're going to get our $2 out of the $1.
Right.
But if we can do that, and it might not happen for 1 or 2 years, but sometimes preventive maintenance is better than reactive.
So he did have some computers. I know that he needed money, 57,000, and then 10,000 for desks. So he did have that second. He had the first, second, and third. And I truly agree that his equipment needs to be replaced. And that total was like 67,000. That was his second page. He had a first page, a second page, and a third page with subsidies. So, Commissioner LaCroix.
You're right. That presentation was confusing when you get 3 pages. I mean, most definitely. And I think I stressed during that meeting, we need to get some education on some of these diversion programs and what's actually going on. And as Ron said, I think, oh my gosh, you look at the drug courts, you look at the veterans court now and some of these other things, we need to find out what programs he's talking about instead of assuming which ones are which.
He's doing
personally. I mean, that's where I'm at right now. But
I personally don't want to absorb programs from MacArthur Grant. Truth, and not that, like I said, those programs aren't good, but we were again trying to do collective impact, collectively putting in. And I did talk to Barry about this, programs that actually you put 5,000 here and 10,000 here and 1,000 here. You need a program that works, and we just talked about it, that you put collectively into one program and not have Gary and Lloyd and Ron doing different programs, even though they're all good programs. That's what's happened, I truly believe, with nonprofits. None of them do a bad job, but same with, I talked to Barb Garcia. None of these are bad programs. They're things that, do positive things, but there needs to be collectively an impact of a whole group, not starting new groups. So, that's my opinion. So, but I do truly believe we do need to do that second page. He does need computers and he does need equipment, and that's a huge thing. He did take, and he told us he took the old equipment from his building. He did not take,
Right.
get brand new stuff and then want more brand new stuff.
I would move to approve those second two, the computers and the office.
And Cindy, if I'm corrected, it would be a $67,000 increase.
Yes,
on
I
his
believe
budget.
that's what his second submission was.
He also had the increase in the contract pay for the blood draws
Yeah.
at 19,000.
So what was that? That's, Cindy, do you have that second page?
Just give me a second and I will find it.
Thank you.
Oh, for the contract increase.
Santo, you were first. Was there a second?
He's gonna add the blood on there too?
He's gonna add that onto it, I'll second.
The blood.
The 19,000 for the blood draws.
Yep.
The
Here, what Cindy
DUIs.
has to say first.
So was it 96,000? Is that what?
Sorry, a hard time for
76.
this to come up. It comes up to 77,521 as his total, and yeah, that increase was 67,452.
Okay, thank you. And that was your motion, sir?
I will amend my motion to include the new contract for the blood draws.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
So,
Madam Chair.
oh, go ahead.
Yes, sir.
So I do think that we need to pull the interested parties together and have that meeting, and maybe that's by leadership to do that with Health and Human Services, Sheriff's Office, State's Attorney's Office, and whoever else may need to be a part of that.
I agree. That way if we're all on the same page of programs and things that we think we're gonna move forward, it's not one collective body. It's gotta be run through either Health and Human Services or something, that does these programs. And if,
I missed the first part of the discussion because I had a phone call and would like to meet them.
Okay.
I missed the first part of the discussion. Okay.
we're gonna meet with you today, and you're gonna change a bunch of things in your budget.
I'm okay with that.
Okay, and-
Just as long as it's not wiped off the slate today, I think a little more information is gonna go a long way.
Okay, so Kevin, what we're talking about is talking about some of the MacArthur, grant programs and things, instead of putting them in different, department head budgets, that we should collectively probably figure out what we're gonna do with some of those programs and decide as a group what we believe needs to move forward. How about that?
Yeah, I think it's important. We have two
Come
more
on.
years of funding, so that's all kind of charted out in our initiatives and everything, so we could have a discussion.
And I think I saw those programs still being funded if I looked at the
Yeah,
program
it's-
last night, so,
This is,
okay.
we're just trying to get ahead of the game, and I
Yep.
think it's good that they're bringing it to the commission's attention now.
Okay.
One thing we did talk about with MacArthur money is
Kevin, come up here for a sec. Thank you. No, you're okay.
if we're being recorded, Kevin Tone, Pennington County Sheriff. But, always with the MacArthur initiative, we talked about phasing out of MacArthur and into county.
Yeah.
And that was a long-term strategy, and what percent of MacArthur programs we keep going forward would be determined, over that 4 or 5 year period, all, some, or none. And so that might be, like I said, I missed the first part of the discussion, so that might be where you're headed, and be glad to sit down, talk strategy with that. But we intentionally, we got $2 million of kind of the big money. Then the next request, we dialed it down to 1.2 million, so 600,000 a year. Kind of started that internal phasing ourselves, knowing that if we were going to absorb a piece of it, the county was in a position to do it all in 1 year. So strategically, we've had some of those discussions, but
I would like to see a lot of those grants, what we're doing, Kevin, and what we think we might be phasing, because it won't just be MacArthur, because some of that stuff's going to phase into yours because working and it's something that has saved us money. So if things are saving us money and they're working, like the Ray and other programs, that's a no-brainer. But just to add more programs is where I'm going, just to have more.
Yeah, I agree with you. We shouldn't have a program for the sake of just having a program. And so,
The first part of the discussion that you actually missed, Sheriff, was I was talking about the state's attorney had talked about a new grant program through MacArthur for another diversion program. And what I'm saying is that before we start putting that into individual departments, that we need to get all the parties together on it, because it seems to me, on my simple mind, it seems like that should be administered through the care campus, through Health and Human Services. The program is probably fine, but I don't see where a program should be administered at various different departments. It'd be a lot easier for cohesiveness if we've got one place where we're actually doing the coordination of those grant programs.
I think it'd be good to get the players together you talked about, because depending upon the program, it might need to be in a different spot. I mean, diversion, frankly, belongs at the state's attorney's office, because that's the charging mechanism. That's the point in the system, in the funnel, where they're kind of the gatekeepers for that function. So some of it you may end up parceling out into different budgets. Some of it you may be able to consolidate, but it'd be a good discussion to have.
Madam
Thank you.
Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Thanks, Gary, because and Kevin, you put it more elegantly than I could explain. We've had some other outside programs that, during the budget, we reviewed, and some of the programs that Deb has talked about, we told them that they need to start finding their own instead of the MacArthur grant. I mean, we've done some evaluations that way.
And one of the things we've tried to do, and I think Willie stepped in the room too, but by bringing the treatment beds on board and stuff, we try and approach a care campus like we do at the jail. If we can generate revenue to pay for positions and hopefully some additional net revenue above and beyond, that helps with absorbing some of these things. So.
That's what I'm trying to say too, is that plus just creating more programs again. There's a lot of programs in Rapid City, tons of programs. Are we just feeding off one program to add to another program when there should be something collectively put in for Native American people and other things? They do have programs up at Latte Health and other programs. And are we just, I don't think we should be in the business of those kind of programs. I think there's enough in the community that we don't have to have a state's attorney in other places having these different programs, unless, like we just said, the funding sources are coming through and they're changing how we do our system. That's what we're trying to do, is change the system through Ray programs and different things that you are doing that actually in the long run, if we didn't do risk assessment programs, if we didn't, and MacArthur, I'm not saying with MacArthur grants or anything, they're bad, because obviously those programs have came out of it. But to add just other programs that we have without, and like I said, they're not bad programs. They're things that are going to be diversion, but there's enough diversion programs in Rapid City. If we can't find them, instead of start making them in Pennington County, to me, that's not good to tell the taxpayers that we're now becoming in state's attorney or areas, treasurer's office or something, that we need programs in order to have diversion. I'm not quite saying that right, but hopefully you're getting what I'm saying.
I think we'll get all the information for you today.
Yeah,
I think
if we get everybody together and we can talk through, and I think what you're talking about is just long-range planning, what should we be doing and should not be doing as a county, so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kevin. Next is general fund software. I don't think we have that.
So in discussions yesterday, same thing, and Cindy can certainly speak to this one because the system that they're looking at all ties in together for levies and taxes. But that's another one that we would request that the board set a $40,000 software reserve in the treasurer's office budget
For what, Holly?
for software. And Cindy, I'll let you add to
Treasurer's
that and
office
explain
needs a
what they've got
software
going.
update.
Software for,
Treasurer's office.
Treasurer's office.
I know, but I mean, for what in the treasurer?
So that
This would help them get on a canned software and off of the software that Lori Wager's department created and is supporting. And this is a software that would tie Shannon's valuations to my levy setting, to creating tax bills, to Janet's collections, back to my office for apportioning. So all three of our offices basically want to be able to put into a reserve so that we can purchase that software when Tyler Technologies has got it completed.
So Cindy, you're saying all three offices would be on the same platform,
Yes.
opposed to
basically.
different operating systems?
Also, they'd
Yep.
all be linked, which would
Right.
wind
Make
up
it
in
more-
the long
much more
run,
effective in the
cutting
long run.
hours.
Okay, do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
We got
Motion by Ross Connect,
second, do we have an amount?
second by
40,000.
40,000.
40,000? Oh,
Yes,
sorry.
sir. Motion by Ross Connect, second by LaCroy for 40,000 for the software for the treasurer's office. Cool. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. 2020 performance step.
Just a
No.
minute,
We
we
gotta
still have
address
more
the
than.
phone bank and the FTEs.
I don't think they have the information yet on that, if I'm correct, Holly.
We're working on it. Worst case, well, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but maximum scenario that we played with last night was 130,000, which would be 3 FTEs and a little bit extra for the phones and the equipment.
Okay, I guess I would
So-
like to see the
We
the
can
plan
get you the
first.
specific numbers. We were just estimating so that you guys would know where your reserve percent would be based on a certain set of scenario. And we can always adjust it.
I'm gonna guess that, if you're doing a phone bank and what you're talking, Holly, I believe it's gonna be more than 130, but I guess for me, how much time do we have information to figure out the phone bank and the FTEs?
We know what the FTEs are for sure. It's just the phone bank side of it that we don't know yet. So we added a little bit extra in for equipment and costs.
So Madam Chair,
Commissioner
would
LaCroy?
would it be appropriate, because this is the provision, to get to the provisional budget and give her an idea to come up with some numbers, would it be appropriate, I see the 130, would it be appropriate to assign 150, so when she draws up, I'm actually thinking more than that, but I'm just trying to be a little bit conservative, 150 for the provisional budget?
I'm not
And
trying
then-
to stop you, Commissioner LaCroy, but they need room, like a place.
I know.
There's a lot more planning. They need a place. They don't know what a phone bank looks like, meaning what that phone bank's gonna be. It might be one person running, it might be 6. And they don't know the equipment in order to get that. So I know the equipment for that is not gonna be cheap, and 130 seems pretty cheap.
200?
I don't know. I guess, I think
For
we
her to
have
do
time for them to investigate
I'm just
that.
trying to give Cindy an idea of something to come up with.
I don't think you can put a number on it until you have somewhat of idea.
Maybe she hears it and when we can bring it back to us.
I understand where you're coming from, Deb, but I also understand where Lloyd's coming from, because Cindy needs a number to work with, and then we can change it in the final budget.
I think it's gonna be pretty high. That's my guesstimate from FTEs, a phone bank and changing a room. You're gonna remodel a room, and maybe you're not gonna remodel a room, maybe you're just gonna take Cindy's room and put 3 cubicles, but 130 is pretty low. So I would say put 500 by the time you're done. By the time you remodel, the phone banks I've seen and the equipment you need and the things you have to change on a phone bank in order to make she's got many calls. It's not gonna be, and maybe I'm incorrect, but I think the ballpark 130 isn't gonna be hitting it. Unless you're going on and here's the bottom line. This is not gonna be a cheap operation, and I don't want it to be cheap myself, because if we're gonna do a phone bank and it's gonna be contiguous or continuous for the next 10 years, I don't wanna make it for a year and then come back and upgrade it for another 200,000. those calls that they are doing are how many calls, Holly? 800 and whatever calls a month, or I can't remember, Holly.
I wanna say they're at about 80,000 a year.
See what I'm saying, guys? So, and I could be incorrect. I'm not disagreeing on 130 in a sense, but I think it's more entailed and more money than we think, and I'm not against that because here's the bottom line. Janet is going to be making money off these fees. So if it is 400,000, we would be getting money back off the 400,000 or whatever it was going to cost. But I'd also like to not budget way too low.
So what was the motion, 130?
Yeah.
No, we haven't made a motion.
We haven't made a
But is
motion
that
yet,
the
so you
number
could
that they're
adjust,
talking about,
you
130?
could adjust whatever number you
Th-
want.
This is my thoughts for right now, is I think the 130 is good. That's gonna cover their employees' costs to get somebody to concentrate on strictly doing that. And I think we gather the more information that Deb's talking about, because you're right, if we're gonna move forward, we're gonna have to have a bigger plan. But I think she's looking for at least the additional employees to get started to concentrate strictly on doing the phone calls and then working through all the other stuff.
Okay, her average salary is 45,000 or 48,000, so we need 145,000 for 3 FTEs. So
Yeah.
we at least know that we need 145,000.
I'd put
And then the
250
phone
or
bank.
something like that, just to start. And if you didn't need the 250, it's better than, when I do a budget, I'm not gonna under budget, I'm gonna over budget. It always comes back into the general fund. We're not losing anything. Am I correct, Cindy?
That's correct.
So what about 150 for the 3 full-time employees and 150 for the phone bank not to exceed 300?
Second.
Okay, it makes sense, guys, because I'm saying.
Makes
it.
sense.
And Holly, now you understand that we are serious about this. We want to do it right. We tried to do it through, and this is why I'm saying this, and I apologize, Commissioner LaCroix and the commission, I should have explained the whole issue. We tried to do it through IT, and it just became a cluster for them and a cluster for the treasurer. So let's do it right. She's going to be making money for us, and she's just overloaded, so. The motion was 300,000?
Yeah, split 150,000 for employees, 150,000 for phone bank or
Equipment.
other.
Equipment, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor for 300,000, 150 for employees, 150 for equipment, say aye.
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 All opposed, motion carries.
Make a motion, take a 5-minute break.
5-minute break. Okay, Ron, you're up.
Do we need a motion to go back or yours?
Motion to come out of recess.
So moved.
Okay.
Moved by DeSanto, second by Drews. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. There you go, Holly, just in case. Okay, Mr. Fairgrounds, Ron Jeffries.
Madam Chair, members of the commission, thank you for giving me time this morning. I certainly don't envy your position of having to go through difficult budget times, but everybody and every one of their own businesses has to do it, so it's something we each are going to have to go through, and we're doing the same thing at the fairgrounds right now.
Well, Ron, with our auditor, she's made our life in Holly a lot easier. So it's been a good budget year, if I'm correct, board?
Not bad.
Yeah.
Good. Good. I think it's interesting because I think there's some businesses out there that are doing remarkably well during this time when others are perhaps not doing as well. So, as was directed previously, we did reduce our 2021 budget request by 10%. We went to 169,364. The 2020 budget request was 182. And so we did submit the letter with the request as previously directed to reduce that by 10%. So I'd be available to answer any questions or see where I can help you with anything.
I guess the only thing I'd chime in on is that if, something happens down the road, we can always sit there as a commission and take care of some finances if that becomes a problem somewhere.
Holly? Speaker?
Confused because I called John and talked to him. The 2020 budget is what is reduced by 10%.
Right.
Not your 2021.
Oh, we misunderstood that.
But we are surely going to give you that 176 today. And
So we may want to
Okay,
revisit that.
well, then, so my 2021 request, from 2020, we were at 188, 182. And when that dropped back 10%, we pushed that forward to 21.
So are we taking him back to his?
So if we were back to the 188, 182, that would be the same as what this year would have been prior to the deduction.
Did you, okay, I know that's, my brain's going somewhere else.
Originally, I think it was projected, when we did our first projection, I think it was at a 1.4% COP. Or so we were expecting about a 1.4% increase. And since our 2020 budget went back 10%, we did the same with 21. We just pulled that 10% forward, 10% deduction forward.
Everybody get that?
Wow. Mm-hmm. Move approval.
Okay.
No.
So, you know, when we operate at the fair, unlike a private entity, we don't have revenue sharing at the end of the year. We don't have additional monies that can be utilized outside of what we normally do, and that's maintain and operate the fairgrounds. Any monies that we have left over at the end of the year, and this last year, I think the number, if Mark, if you correct me if you're wrong, but it was somewhere in that $55,000 that we, quote, made revenue over expenses when we're all in. Fair, stock show, general administrative, all of the operations, we made about $55,000. From a banker standpoint, if you're going to base about a $4 million contract on a $55,000 profit margin, you wouldn't get much financing.
Right.
We know that. We're very lean. As you know, we're lean. We operate as tightly as we can. When we went looking for hand sanitizer, we went to federal surplus property first. We try to recycle and reuse and do the best we can with that. From that 55,000, we take a portion of that and put into reserves in case we have a rainy day issue, which could be much like this year. And then the balance goes to paint, boards, and nails. It's not like we get done with the end of the year and take profit sharing out of it. Whatever we have left over at the end of the year is going back either into reserves for the rainy day fund, emergency fund, or it goes back into a project to work on the fairgrounds. So any monies we don't have just means we're able to do whatever it is less.
So do we have a total on the stall barn? How much that cost?
Under budget.
Okay.
The only delay, since you brought that up, the only delay we ran into that is they designed to put some grass back in around that.
Kind of bad soil.
Just a requirement, and the soil didn't quite meet the testing level that it needed to be. They didn't think it is. They planted grass there now. We'll water it, but quite honestly, horses and grass tend to get consumed or stomped on as we go forward. I think it was a request, the requirement that the city would like to have greenway space in there.
So does money,
It'll be difficult.
does the extra money come back to us? Or?
No, it goes back into the properties. So we will use that to paint, boards, nails.
Okay.
That's what it is.
I guess that direction was we were taking 2 from you and we were given 2, but that was for the stall barn.
On the stall barn monies.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm gonna have to defer to John and Mike on that.
Okay. If you could send us that total and what is left or out of that. And I didn't know that direction at that point. I know we directed to give 200 and them 200, maybe there's only 23 left or something, I don't know, but Mark, did you ever get that total from them?
No.
Okay.
But on our general fund budget, whatever we have left goes back into operations. So it might be that that's the year that we get to buy a new piece of drag equipment or a new mower or a new Bobcat to help operate.
I'm good with that one.
Yeah.
I just wondered on the stall barn total.
Although as long as we're on that, Hebron Brick did come on and agree to donate some brick to us to help us do a patio space out there. So
Good deal.
kudos to Hebron Brick for supporting us. That was very nice.
Awesome. You guys do well at grants and volunteers, I'll tell you that, or in kinds. That's how that actually has survived in many areas for a long time, so.
Madam
We've been very
Chair,
fortunate.
Commissioner LaCroy.
I'd make the motion to accept their 2020 budget, 188, 181.
You mean they're,
To change their request?
Yeah, change their request to the 2020 number, 188, 181.
Bring it back.
for 2021, he wants 188, what's the total, Lloyd?
188, 182.
Okay, so that'd be by LaCroy. Your second?
Second.
Second by DeSanto. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
All right.
All opposed? Motion
Appreciate it.
carries.
We will do the best we can to maintain your property.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
And if you could
Thanks,
send
Ron.
us
Thank you
that
all.
and get with Mike, Ron.
You have your own liability insurance or is that through us?
Oh, I see
Okay.
where you're at.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah, dollar difference. Huh.
Number 8, I was looking at that, I just thought they were being cool. Um, The 2020 performance step reinstatement, that would be that second half. If I'm correct, Miss Cindy?
The number that Holly gave you yesterday includes, making that retroactive to those that were eligible but did not get it since you suspended it in April.
Okay, so what was that total, 170 or 156? Which number was that?
I believe that was 170.
It was.
yeah.
Yep. So we would reinstate that this year?
That would be my motion.
I'd second that.
Been a motion and a second to reinstate the performance step to the people that were supposed to get it this second half, so since April.
And
Madam
I
Chair.
believe that the 170 is going to be a max because not everybody's probably going to receive it, so.
Yes, sir. Commissioner DeSanto.
I'm still a little concerned about, I'm not going to vote against this, but I think we really need to be cautious about our October receipts. So, property tax receipts.
Cindy,
I
I'm
guess I
with
can't
Mark on
overstate
that for our budgets and what's coming in for property tax. But will the first, and maybe that's a Janet question, is the first half people I thought had overpaid, and maybe you've seen those numbers, right? Meaning they paid most
Ahead of time,
full year,
first quarter and second quarter.
yeah.
I do believe that Janet did talk about that. As far as revenues percentages go, I think we are ahead a little, in comparison to where we were last year. But I don't think that the 170,000 potential is going to make or break us at the end of the year either.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't just the 170, it'd be the changes of the total amount of the 10% cut with the 170, if we're returning some of that. And then we ended up at the end of the year being, needing the money, I guess, speaking for myself. And then the other thing is, what I'm finding is like the big motels and stuff that were hurting during this time, they were gonna pay them in the second half anyway. And I'm also in contact with some of the bigger ones, and they are actually getting full again and getting booked, so. And we are having the rally and some other stuff, but those are the big amounts that actually, really impact that budget as well. So,
Madam Chair,
Commissioner, Ms. Cindy.
when the board, if the board chooses to approve the retroactive for the performance pays, then that will, of course, roll over into the 2021 budget. And so I know Holly had that increase in as well in what that would do to the budget overall. And I know that there's concerns about how the revenues may come in October, and I totally understand that. But in November, right away, we'll know what that looks like. And at that point, if the board chooses, they could say, well, then we are not going to go to Gallagher in 2021. That would push off all of that increase of going to Gallagher completely if they needed to. I don't think that will happen, but it is an option.
And then we're also putting our reserves at 20 so far until we take all these other things that we've done. But, so that would be a consideration where that number is as well. Plus, Cindy, in November or maybe December, I can't remember when you get over collected or revenues and stuff. And that would make a difference as well of where those numbers would end up as well.
Okay,
That is true. And just for the board's information, when I calculated the projected reserves,
Yep.
I did not use 10% unspent in 2020 or 2021. I used 5%.
Okay, Cindy. I just want to make sure there's a safety valve, which it sounds like there
that-
is.
Yeah, because I know that like with buildings and grounds, I know his budget is probably not going to come in 10% under in 2020. My election budget is not going to come in 10% under in 2020. So just to be on the safe side, I only used 5% as a projected unspent.
And that is why you're the auditor.
Thank
So
you, Cindy.
I think we just vote to,
No,
we didn't, we had a motion, okay?
Do we make two motions of the, one on
or put them
2020
together.
and one on 21, or can we do it in one motion?
What do you mean?
You
Direct
could-
effect on 2021 budget. We're just doing the 2020
2020.
step, and then we're doing something different in.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, sorry, Commissioner.
We'll vote on the 2021
All in favor?
budget.
The 2020, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
So what he was asking, do we have to do one for the 2021 156 now and we can rescind it in
Right.
November, or are we waiting?
Okay, Cindy, tell us, direct effect on 2021, that was just information, it wasn't a vote, right? Or do we have to do a 2021 one too?
Well, considering the direction of the board was to put people on the Gallagher scale from where they would be at the end of the year, now that performance has been granted for the rest of the year for 2020, that will change where those people were. And so
Yeah.
it has the new numbers for salaries. So I will just use those numbers to move into the 2021 budget. I don't think we need a motion on that.
And that was the 156, if I'm correct, Miss Cindy?
Yes, I
Difference.
believe it was.
Okay. Okay. So, did she just say, I'm sorry, did you?
Don't need it.
Okay, thank you.
You don't need a motion.
I was focusing on this other paper, I apologize. Okay, so then Mike is here, do we want to visit with Mike at all?
Sure.
Okay, Mike, come on up. The board just gave you $200,000 this year, just kidding.
Thank you. I don't know whether we need to talk anymore.
You might not want to.
You showed us your numbers of 49,000. Let me get your paper. Board, everybody got their paper in front of them?
Yep.
They're 49,000, I don't know what I did with mine.
8320.
182.20. That is for what is happening right now. What was your 10% cut this year, your total? Do you remember, Mike?
I'm sorry, I don't remember that right off the top of my head.
Sorry, Holly.
Well, it would have been about almost $500,000.
Okay, I knew it couldn't have been 80 because you got too big a budget, but, so, Gary, you want to explain what we're doing, what we're thinking?
Well, the discussion is to, first of all, I don't think anybody had any objection to the 49,000, but the next part of the equation then came in is that, do we put back the 10%? Because of all the additional things that you've been asked to do. We know that you had some employees that instead of furloughing, that they are gone, so needing replacement there. So we talked about, instead of having temporary employees, to let you move forward with hiring employees. We understand you're down about 4 at this point in time. So the discussion revolved around the 49,000 is not an issue as much as maybe we should just consider giving back the 10% that we collected from you several months ago at this point in time.
Okay. Some of what, what I'm trying to do is, I'm trying to work on reorganizing how our department runs. My hope is that we get transitioned into with this new software that we're trying to bring online is likely to really have a significant change on how we do things, and may make some different there's some spots that I'm not sure how they will work yet, that I think that I might have to stick somebody. So I've been wanting to hold some FTEs back, till we kind of understand how we want to do, how we're going to manage that once we get this software up and running.
So food for thought, you were talking about these, the 27 weeks and 20 days, those issues, but you're also saying holding back some projects because you didn't have the funding, you cut 10%. I guess I'm saying needs, not wants.
Yeah.
Some of that needs to be brought forward, Mike, because anything you're putting off today, we already know is either going to cost you, like Lloyd said, more money tomorrow,
Yeah.
or it's going to be something that in the long run, you're going to have to come back and supplement because you know you're probably going to have to do it. So,
But a couple of, that, well, and, even since our meeting, or the hearing yesterday, of course, I already had two departments reach out, wanting to have discussions about, what's going to happen relative to their needs. And so that's what I was talking about was going to happen relative to this.
and this is.
Even my $500,000 is restored, I think that some priorities have to shift no matter what.
Right. Because you have 27 weeks, which was about half the year, right?
Yeah.
We're going to move forward, and if we open the building, we already know it's not going to be less work. It's going to be more people touching and more people doing stuff. So then that's another 200 and something days. You might as well increase that another, 50, 60,000 if that's what you're saying, for time and cost that has.
Yeah, that's
I'm saying.
that's roughly what I was figuring out for, having a couple of people doing wipe downs for the rest of this year. Now, if we carry that through next year, I'm thinking that we're talking like $150,000 overall to handle them. And but it's, to me, that it's difficult to put a number on it. I don't want to make this any more complicated than it is. I mean, to me, what's important is if I'm allowed to bring some people on that I can use to wipe down.
Bottom line,
things.
Mike,
But I don't know that in the long term, that's that I want to fill 2 FTE slots with that kind of the person that I would bring on to do that.
Mike, you're here today because we're trying to figure this out and help you. We didn't say we'd give you $500,000 back, but for sure they were at the 49. The bottom line is, if without sounding mean to you, you're contemplating and we're not getting all that in our heads, if I'm correct. So we kind of need a direction of where you need help, and we're doing
that will be fine. All I'm telling you is that some of the issues that I raised yesterday about it will not go away necessarily that I get the $500,000 back.
Madam Chair,
Okay.
if I could.
Commissioner LaCroix.
Thank you, Mike. Mike brought up a big issue, is what he said, is with this new software, there's going to be some restructuring. And some jobs are going to change, and some things are coming on. I understand that, and I appreciate that. What I heard from this commission, if I'm not wrong, is they see that you've taken on some extra tasks that you haven't had to before, and with these openings, they're okay with the temporaries that you discussed. But they're also, if you needed a couple full-times to get back up to full staff, they're okay with that.
Okay.
From what I heard. Bottom line,
that's greatly appreciated. And I'm not trying to make this any. All I'm trying to say that some of the issues I raised, if I get the $500,000 back, don't necessarily go away. There are going to be some people who believe that things need to be done that we just aren't able to do right now.
I guess through all your conversation, without sounding yucky, I don't get. I'm getting that you're 49,000 down from wiping down. That you might need 2 FTEs. I heard this morning you're down 4 FTEs total. do you have the 4 FTEs in your budget? Or do you just have 2 FTEs in your budget, and we're saying that you can get 2 temporary? I guess I'm confused where we're at with your whole
Our budget
process.
is covered for the 4 FTEs that we do not currently have filled for next year.
Okay.
What is the estimated cost of the two others that we were talking about?
$49,000.
$49,000 for the remainder of this year.
For this 49?
Yep.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's the remainder of this year, not what you already spent.
That, yes, that would be for the remainder of this year for.
Get her done.
Okay, so I was thinking.
I have not, I'm not, as I said, I'm not asking for, I have not asked for anything other than I'm seeking the ability to have somebody wiping the things down.
Madam Chair.
Okay, I got it, Mike, but I guess I was confused, guys, because I thought the 49,000 is what he spent already, not what he needs for the rest of the year. So that was my fault. Okay. Commissioner
Mike, I
DeSanto.
think specifically what we want to know is, what do you need right now to get the job done that you think you need to get the job done?
In
Do you
2020.
Do you need us to allow for the 2 temps? Or would you rather than hiring 2 temps, get 2 more, replace 2 FTEs and use them instead of the temps?
I could do that. What I'm seeking is somebody with some skills that,
But you can hire as full-time. Probably.
yeah, hire that they do. When I'm advertising to have somebody doing wipe downs, I may not get the person that I'd like to have in the long term.
So you're taking the 2 seasonal, so you can maybe hire them full-time if you can train them and they're good.
Yes.
And then next year you will hire 4.
Well, 2 more.
2 more.
2 more.
Lloyd,
Madam Chair, today I'm going to make the motion to give you the authorization to hire the 2 temporaries that you seek. It sounds like you've got it in your budget for the 4 that you're short, so with these FTEs, that would give them, to be able to hire them, there's a plus to that side that we discussed yesterday. You can get some temps going, you get to see how their work is, if they get them cross-trained, and if you feel they're good, you can move them up and come to us with that point. But for right now, I'd make I shouldn't have been talking.
you're okay, just.
Motion
thing is
to
just-
give him the 2 temporaries, that the sheet that he filled out.
And just put it at even 50 would be easier?
Yes.
Cindy? Cindy, you have any questions on this? You're on mute. Sorry, Lloyd made a motion.
You authorize him to move forward with 2 temporaries. I don't need a dollar amount in that.
Yeah, that's my thought as well, is as long as I'm able to hire some people to help with the wipe downs.
Yeah.
And you realize that at some point, we're gonna have to probably come back and ask for some kind of a supplement to help cover those costs.
I think we understand. That was my
Yep,
motion.
we are understanding.
Do we have to make a motion to that, Cindy, or we just,
Lloyd did make the motion to authorize him to hire the 2 temporaries. We haven't had a second on that
you have a
motion.
Second.
Second by DeSanto. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Hopefully it worked out.
That was
for you.
my confusion, not these guys, obvious.
So is it my understanding then
Okay.
that Mike may come back to ask for supplemental,
Of 50
That's correct.
Whatever it
in
costs.
2020
Well,
budget.
not 50?
yes,
It would be,
it's gonna be more, well, we'll do our best to stay within the cuts that you asked us to make. I don't have a crystal ball to tell you how much we're gonna have to deal with for the rest of the year because of the COVID. The problem I see right now is that I've got, my staff is being strained because I'm utilizing them for something we wouldn't normally
And you
do.
need to
And you
have
may
have
not
other
need
duties.
no additional, because you're down 4 right now, and it'd probably be a month or month and a half before you can get them filled, so you're gonna have that in your budget already.
and we did give
Yeah.
direction to a couple of departments to go work with Mike with their needs.
Yeah,
And that's
Mike.
what I think Mike is saying. He's already been approached by a couple departments.
I
to-
mean, that's what's gonna happen. I was in a meeting this morning
And it
already.
should, and it's coming out of their budgets, right, not yours?
No, there's expectations is coming out of our budget.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think we gave direction that the departments had to take it out of their budgets.
I thought you said they should.
Well, I did say they should, but I don't think that was the direction we gave them. So they're gonna be looking for Mike for doing
Can I
that.
tell you something either way? If it comes out of Sydney's budget or Holly's budget, it still comes out of general fund, so he can keep his costs, and then
We'll
we
figure it
put
out.
back those costs.
Can
Out
I,
of that
can I
10%.
explain a little, some of the meeting that I had
Don't.
this?
Go ahead, Mike.
And I am hoping that I don't confuse things more, but one of the things that we were before, and I mentioned it yesterday in discussion, is that we've been trying to upgrade the security control systems for access control to the buildings, and such. There is, I think that we've got other things that are coming up in the, when we talked about doing that, IT was gonna bring $130,000 to the table to help try to cover that. I think she can still bring $120,000 to that. But the discussion I had with them this morning is, we can't do everything that we were gonna try and do. We're gonna take a bite out of it, but we can't get it all done.
What's Alden's cost?
Honestly, I don't know that I can even tell you right now, because our pricing was in December.
And what was that?
I don't know if I, sorry, I do not have that information. We have, the point I'm trying to get across is that we had some sewer lines in the jail break. I'm afraid that we may have reached our tipping point with horizontal sewer lines in the jail, that we may start seeing more failures over in there.
Well, Mike, we've been doing that 5 years, and it seems like we would somewhat look forward, even in building committee, to replace those, because that's been an issue before we even, and I thought maybe some of that would have been taken care of with the new jail, but.
We fix it now when it occurs. My concern is that we may, with what we saw, that we may be at a point where we have a lot of them that are on the verge of failure or very soon. Of course, when something like that happens, it pours down in other areas and wrecks other things when it happens, beyond just the grossness of it.
But it seems, to me, if it's been going on this long, it needs to be done. And I know we put other needs ahead of stuff sometimes, Mike, but I guess I've been hearing about those pipes since I've been here. I don't know how long that's been, 5 years? And we still haven't fixed anything. I mean, like you said, we can make it work, but some of those pipes are how old?
They're over 30 years now.
With the old piping that shouldn't be in there
Yeah,
anyway.
and that's the challenge we're up against, is that the useful life of a lot of this stuff in the jail it's coming to, and the jail has been full. The point, what I'm saying is that I think that we need to start planning on how that would be done to try and accommodate that.
Can we start having like a priority list? We used to have one about what the issues are, Mike, because we can't help you if we don't know them. And then even in building committee, the two guys that are in there, they can't help you make priorities on some of that. Because I think if people actually saw that, and instead of asking for other needs, I know that the sheriff needed bigger stuff for his facility, but if you don't have the infrastructure, that's a huge need before you build something else over the top of an infrastructure that already sucks. So, I guess we need to have a priority list at this point, I believe, as a commission, and then like everybody else, we're telling for reserves, or if we need more reserves in his accounts in order to get to those 5 years or 1 year, in this case, probably.
Madam Chair,
There needs to be something different, Mike. Commissioner
I guess the
Roskin.
way I look at it, Mike, we know that something's coming down the pipeline, it sounds like, right?
Yeah, and
So if we-
that's been my point about
Unintended.
bringing it up is.
So if we said 5 years, we're gonna have to fix this problem. So we identify the problem, we figure out what we're gonna need in 5 years, and then over the course of 5 years, we start putting, what I call reserves for replacement, so that it's not a major capital expense, but we've kind of covered it. And if we don't need it in 5 years, then so be it, we've got it.
Don't need it.
Don't we have reserves for that, Mike? I thought did we take your reserves or something?
Well, accumulated building, whatever in the accumulated building would be the reserve for that sort of thing, and that was has been nearly spent to zero to complete the jail. And part of the complication of this, it's hard to even discuss it because I know it just messes with everybody, is that we're carrying the city's portion of the stalling barn right now, so $550,000. So there's potential if we execute work too soon, the money might not be there until we get that money put back in. Now,
Do you have the total of that barn? By chance, a guesstimate?
It's around $800,000 what was spent.
Okay, and we took the 200 from us, or we don't, and then
We
200 from them, or we haven't? Did you take the 200 from the
Buildings and
fairgrounds?
Grounds contributed the $200,000 to that.
And how about the fairgrounds? Did they pay you back the 200?
They've contributed $150,000 or something. They were going to contribute anything additional if it was needed to cover any changes that were necessary during the project. So,
I mean, I don't mean to interrupt,
Oh, you're
but I
good.
thought it was 200,
yes.
and if it comes under,
We keep ours.
we keep our, so they still, because the fairgrounds was gonna take theirs out of their bonds, if I remember right, they had?
Or
Was it bonds?
reserves or something.
Reserves or something, but we should get our portion back. I thought that was part of the deal. Well, I guess,
Obviously,
will
we haven't got our portion from the city at this point.
yeah, that either.
We will get $550,000 back from the city.
When do they plan on bringing that back in? Because you have to get, I know the
The
completion.
way that the agreement was set up was that we'd carry it through when it got done. I got a substantial completion on it now, so I can submit that stuff to them for
Nice.
reimbursement. We probably won't receive payment for that till August or something, I would guess.
But Mike, that was my worry, is to doing another project and us funding it. Basically, when we said we had bonding for a project and we didn't have all the money for bonding, and we just emptied out your money as well, so. When you need it,
What the goal?
when there was already 5-year project money.
Yeah, the
that was
intent,
for something
intent has
already.
always been along how we agreed to move forward with this is that with the intent of selling Lacrosse Street to replenish accumulated building. So,
Madam Chair, if I may. I'm going to make a suggestion, and we'll see if the rest of the commission agrees with it, but this sewage system problem at the jail seems to be a pretty significant priority. So I would suggest that Mike get on figuring out what the cost is going to be of not a patch job that we've been doing, but a fix.
Right.
And present that to us. And if we have to, Cindy, tell me if I'm barking up the wrong tree, if we need to move that from the general fund to pay for it, we need to get it done. I mean, that's all there is to it. That we can't have.
here, and this is the point that I was trying to make, is that rather than utilizing all the money that was earmarked for security upgrades or something like that. Some of it needs to go into study. There's quite a bit to doing this, trying to figure this out.
There is.
And it's going to be very complicated in how it gets done because we got to keep it running and doing. So I need somebody to work with us to study that. So that's where I'm looking for getting some.
He needs money for a study to have it.
Yeah, and this is where I'm talking about. Everybody's not going to get everything that they want because I think that's a higher priority now.
Mike, the bottom line is we need a year priority, 2-year or whatever. It'd be nice to see the projects you need, and that way too, when we're thinking that we can take some money out of it, even your building committee, and maybe they know for a project that is going to be ongoing, where are you getting the money from? What projects, and we do that with CPI in the city when we're there, or CIP. What project are you taking away in order to make this project a priority? Because I think we need to start seeing that before we agree with projects anymore anyway.
I
A
agree.
little bit more, because
That-
it's being put on you. Saying,
Well, that is the second item that, and this has been discussed in building committee to the degree, there's been requests that we start developing, looking at that longer term plan. You know, we did it 10 years ago, 10 years ago. We need to look at, get an update on what our needs are again.
Yeah.
I thought we did it a couple of years ago, remember, because we wanted to know where you're spending your 800,000.
The only thing that we've been able.
Chillers were on, I thought were on that list or something along that back then.
Yeah, well, I put the chiller on. We replaced the chiller this year.
So I guess it doesn't have to be done by budget, but it would be nice to see, Mike, you have a plan for what is your most priority? How much do you believe on a guesstimate that's going to cost? How much this?
I agree.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner LaCroix.
I mean, I hate to do it like this, but I'm going to make a motion that the building committee take a look at the sewer system, decide whether we need a study done, a 5-year plan or something like that, that it go to the building committee, and then whatever they come up with, bring it back to the commission.
Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second for discussion. I wonder if we ought to make a motion today that let Mike proceed with looking for 2 or 3 companies that could do that study.
That's what I think should happen.
You think so?
I think you should ask.
I think we're ready for a study.
You should ask Mike why he put it.
Just to death, but we're ready for a study.
That is my point.
I would amend my motion to add that, but I'd also like the rest of the motion, 5-year plan, come back.
Seconder is okay with that motion.
Thank you. So your first priority is to do the sewer system, and then there's a reason why that priority has been put off, because you needed chillers and other things. And you've been fixing it because, was it just because of jail or because you needed chillers and other things that were causing you more issues than a sewer line that you could temporarily fix?
My point in talking about it, as you noted, is that I've talked about this for a couple of years at least. That is something that's coming up and trying to get people to understand it now. Having discussions about the impact that has on operations for that jail is a significant deal. We might not have but we're getting to a point where we might not have a choice. And what it's probably going to require is shutting down a pod at a time and going in and retrofitting.
Yep.
But it gets complicated really quick because you start taking you can't take the sewer line on the first floor offline and still keep the upper pods running. So it gets really complicated.
Got to work your way up,
The,
down.
the thing that dumbfounds me is we needed this, we bonded.
We've never bonded for this.
For the jail, kitchen and laundry, we didn't use any bonding money?
Well, yes, we use everything we had left.
Yes, and we didn't put in for the sewer that was going to be underneath all this and between all this and going to cause issues in the jail before a kitchen.
I think those ones got fixed.
Yep.
dealt with, but still.
But it wasn't part of it.
Sorry?
Because it was such a priority and has been for a long time. It didn't get, that's not, we're talking about it now, but Mike, it should have been done with as a priority with that. And I know, you can only do that through building committee and stuff, but again, it was before the laundry in the jail was even around. I know that. And I know we wanted to upgrade the kitchens and the laundry, but we wanted to do that sewer line long time before, because you guys kept telling me that, and Mike, wasn't you, I'm sorry, I keep saying you. The other Mike said, if we don't fix this, there isn't any reason to even add or put any more buildings onto this, because the sewer line should be a priority.
And in my opinion, we've acted in an appropriate way, because where we were seeing the worst situations was in the existing kitchen. Where that's where the biggest problem was, is that the sewer lines under the floors are failing and we can't access them because they're structural floors.
Didn't we change, also our main line too?
We did not change our main line out of the building yet. That was something we were looking at. We did not have the funding available to take care of that part of it.
Okay, so your direction, did you understand their direction, what we're making a motion on today?
That you want me to proceed with trying to line up the necessary people to get the study done for moving forward on the jail.
And you have the funding in your budget right now for that?
Well, that would come out of the $800,000. As long as Cindy doesn't have it, I believe that that's allowable for that type of work to come out of capital improvement.
Is that true, Cindy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Mike, real quick, what was the water damage in the basement of the Lacrosse Street building?
What was the water damage? We had the fire service for the sprinklers line broke outside the building. There was enough pressure to drive the water in underneath the building and up through the cracks in the floor and stuff, and we had 3 or 4 inches of water in the.
That's all been cleaned up now, though?
Yes, that happened on a weekend 2 weeks ago, I think. We had people come in immediately to. Our people worked to get all the water. I had people up there till 2 o'clock in the morning, and then the next day we again were up there and cleaned things out, and then we brought a company in to immediately start dehumidifying and sucking the water out of the building. So, and they just pulled the last of the.
He's meeting there.
Yeah,
Gonna be there.
we pulled the last dehumidifiers out yesterday. So,
and so is that basement operational? The water on and?
Yes, okay. Everything's functional. It's it works, and generally all the base has been pulled off of the walls because they drilled holes in the bottom of all the walls to help remove the moisture. We were able, my direction to them is that, telling them that we're trying to sell this building. I don't want to end up having to cut 4 feet of sheetrock out of here. Amen. We need to get this dried out as quickly as possible. I think we've succeeded in doing that. So
it probably looks better than the day we looked at it.
After having 80,000 gallons of water run through it, it smells better too. So,
thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Mike, you do a good job. I know I'm just kind of busting you a little bit, but not on purpose. It's just like you're just nice, and you're trying to get everybody's needs met all the time.
And don't
seriously.
be afraid to reach out to the building committee and so that we can take some of the pressure off.
Yeah, thank you.
Bottom line, you guys are overloaded, and that just was one more thing that puts you over the edge. So you're in a stressful point with this COVID already, so that's not my intention to do that. It's just that sewer line thing was just something you've been wanting to do for years anyway.
My point is that I want to start moving forward with how do we fix this thing, and as you've allowed me to move forward with getting a study done to figure out how to do it, so.
The main thing is maybe we focus more on fixing the things we have instead of moving forward on the things that we need to build. And let you maintain what you have for a while. I know you guys need a building, it's a ground building, but right now, just getting ahead on everything that should be a priority in the buildings we have and then move forward. And don't have other departments bring their needs forward before we get our priorities met in the buildings that we have already. So. All right, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, Mike.
Interest distribution policy, Cindy.
Ooh, I'm sitting here not being even prepared. The county currently, and I meant to get this to you guys, has a policy that all of the interest that Janet earns on all of the county money, at the end of the year, we have to apportion that basically to every fund based on their year-end balance. And so once that's done, we move that money to that fund, but then we transfer back through an operating transfer, all except for the Healthcare Trust Fund, MacArthur Fund, and E911 Fund. They keep their interest. All of our other funds, their interest comes back into the general through an operating transfer. And so I wanted to just bring this forward because I didn't know if the board realized that. So with highway having $10 million or it had $10 million sitting in reserves, the interest that was earned on that was being transferred back to the general fund.
So what do you believe? You take care of the books in order to do those books and make it fair across the board? Or why would you leave it in 911 and then take highways? I mean, what is your?
Well, 911 is by statute. We have to because we have that fund. Healthcare Trust is because that fund is supported by the premium, so we can't put those back in general. MacArthur was all donated dollars by that MacArthur Foundation. So the state auditor said, no, you can't take that interest.
So what's left for us to have a policy for?
There's the, let me pull up my worksheet. I apologize. I was like thinking more about Mike's thing than.
What don't we collect interest for that you think we need a policy? How about that, Cindy?
Well, it's not that what we collect interest on, it's where it's distributed and how it's distributed.
Right.
Well, if it's mandated or if it's not. So if we have all the ones that are coming in that are non-mandated already, we get them already, and then the unmandated, or do we have some unmandated ones that aren't giving us their interest?
So any revenue
Please
that,
make a
Yeah, I think
policy so they
the
follow.
three unmandated ones are, the three that we can't touch are MacArthur,
911.
911, and one other.
yeah,
What
so
was
all our other revenue is put on interest, I presume, until it's needed.
So tell us what kind of policy you're wanting, Cindy, and why.
I wanted the board to be aware of how this is being split. And I wanted to know if the board wishes to change any of that. Now, last year, of course, interest rates were fairly good. And so the amount that would not have gone back to general fund been about $100,000. We would have still had about $57,000 that was earned on general fund dollars. But if we had left all the interest in road and bridge, 24/7, library, fire, all of those different funds, we would have been shorter by $100,000 in what we have in general fund.
So Miss Cindy, you brought this forward for a reason. Tell us what you'd like to do.
I wanted the board to be aware that this is what's happening, for one, and to see if there was any desire by the board to change that.
So what you're basically asking, Cindy, correct me if I'm wrong, is rather than transferring that interest to those different areas, library, fire, so forth and so on, we leave it to earn interest. Reinvest it?
No, it's all earning interest. Janet takes care of all of that. it's the way that when we have that revenue of the interest that we receive back,
Yeah.
that comes back into, I mean, it all comes in through revenue, through the
Mhm.
general fund, and then it gets apportioned back out. Janet will still invest it no matter what we have, no matter what fund it is, because she looks at county dollars as all the county money, not like I look at it as by fund.
Okay.
So the choice on it, Cindy, as I'm understanding, would be using the road and bridge fund as an example. So last year, if they had $10 million that was earning interest, instead of that interest going to the general fund, it could have gone right back into the road and bridge fund.
Correct.
Same for libraries, same for
Yeah, same for all of
24/7.
them. Yeah.
Yep. And I did send out an email to all of the county auditors just to kind of get a feel for what other places do. And it was all over the place. I think we have a lot more funds in respects than, of course, of the smaller counties. And they keep theirs in the general. In some cases, they're like, no, we leave it back in that fund because otherwise general fund ends up doing an operating transfer partway through the year to support it anyway. So it was kind of all over the place.
The bottom line is, when you do the interest, you talked about assigned budgets and how much that affects our bonding. I mean, how does that interest, if we switch it from general fund or if we leave it in the other ones, does it matter?
Not much, no.
It would reduce our fund balance in general fund that we have for unassigned that counts towards bond.
But fairly insignificant.
Yeah, but
So do we actually have a policy that directs that, or has that just been our practice?
That has been motioned by the board, and that is what the Department of Legislative Audit looks at as our interest distribution policy.
Okay.
Anybody want to change it?
Not this time.
Okay.
I don't have any particular interest in changing it.
Me neither.
So we just need to make a motion?
Nope, you don't even need to make a motion. If there's no change, I do not need a motion. I just wanted to make sure the board was aware and to see if there was a desire to change it.
Informational
Cindy.
only.
Yep.
So we have change in insurance agents. I would defer to Gary and Mark and ask. they
Well, I don't
probably
have a
know
problem
more.
with the current structure. I just think that we've missed out on some discounts we could be applying for by, it's just kind of what I compare it to in my mind when I was talking to him yesterday was, when Shannon and his Board of Equalization guys go out and do assessing and people don't let them into their house, they stand a pretty good chance of losing. Whereas if they let them into the house so that they get a good idea of what's going on, then they could possibly be saving some tax dollars. Well, we need to let these guys into our house, so to speak, and to inspect what our operation looks like so that we can take advantage of any discounts that we, and if they come up with something and say, well, like, for example, with cybersecurity, well, if you guys just added this one protocol, you could save yourselves $3,000 a year. And that protocol costs us $150 to add, 2 hours worth of somebody's time, then we should do it. So I think that the current structure is a good structure, but we need to get a little more involved in it and not, I think it's been out of sight and out of mind, frankly.
When do we have to decide that, Holly? And when do we have to talk to them to change that insurance policy? Because we were talking about risk assessment or something like that policy. Changing some of those risks on cyber or.
I thought
That's all,
it
that's
Not
all
now.
internal, though, so it's not a big deal.
So we're not.
I think the other issue is we actually purchase liability from the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance. We purchase work comp from the SDML Work Comp Fund. We can buy that direct from those two rather than have an agent. And so the previous discussion on this has been, we pay 7.5% commission for having a local agent on that. And for those two particular programs. And is that something that we want to continue? I mean, as we heard yesterday, a portion of that or a share of that is contributed back to charities within the area by the agencies. So I don't know exactly how many dollars that actually costs us, that 7.5%. Do you have that figure, Cindy, for those two, for the Public Assurance Alliance and for the work comp?
Between, and I didn't pull the work comp one up, I apologize, but they also, they charge us an agent fee on the liability, which went up to 24,000 this year. They charge us an agent fee on our auto insurance, and that was $15,000 this year.
And
as
both
you
of
guys-
both of those are purchased through the Public Assurance Alliance?
Correct,
So what's your
That's
recommendation,
40,000
Gary?
right there.
Right.
yeah.
So Gary, tell us what direction in order to make this the best bang for our buck.
Well, I hate to be the one providing direction. I happen to work for one of those companies, but
But you also are in the insurance business. It's just not the company.
well, the agreement with the agents is between this commission and those agents as to what that commission is. Public Assurance Alliance nor the work comp fund, neither one, say, tell us, you gotta have an agent in between, because they sell direct too. And so at some point in time, going back in history, whenever Pennington County joined on the liability and the work comp programs, this commission determined that they would pay a local agent to be the intermediate insurance agent on these programs. And that's where that percentage came up with, was determined at that point in time.
So maybe you work with commission leadership and maybe Holly and John, and we figure out what that means and then bring it back to the commission. You okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
You okay with
Madam
that?
Madam Chair.
Miss Holly, Miss John Morrell.
I know I need a haircut.
You okay with that? All right.
I think Cindy.
Let's do that. Miss Cindy?
I just pulled up the invoice for the work comp, and there was an $18,000 agent fee on our work
Okay.
comp. And just to piggyback, as Gary was saying, it's
57,000 already.
have to have an agent between us and the South Dakota Public Assurance Alliance or the work comp. And we are the ones that end up putting all the information together for getting the renewals and that sort of thing. It's not the agent. It's not like the agent comes in and sits down with us and helps us put together all the numbers of what we're going to be insured on. All of the auto insurance, Lori Wessel reaches out to all the departments. We list all the vehicles. She gets I do the one for the liability. That's based on our budget. So I do the numbers on that and I submit that.
I'd be willing to help on this, Miss Cindy, that way too, because Gary, like he said, is in the insurance, but he could give us the advice of where we need to go. And then we'll probably need some numbers and stuff from you, but Miss Holly can help me with some of that. And then include Gary in on some of the areas we have no idea about, so.
Madam Chair. So there's two areas of insurance that we are paying commissions on that we don't need to be paying commissions on, is what you're saying? Well, three areas?
Three, yeah.
Yes, sir.
So in my opinion, I mean, if it's going to save us $40,000,
60.
$50,000 a year, then obviously we don't need to be using them for those particular areas. There's other areas that we could continue to use them for, but in those particular areas, we don't need a middleman.
So we'll come back with that proposal on how much that saves and what that means to us. We'll put that all down on paper, and then we can decide that, even if we want to do it at the commission board meeting. Is that okay with this board? Lloyd, Ron?
Yeah,
is it?
that's okay.
So number 11 is.
Thank you, Gary, for pointing that out.
Yes, and Cindy. P and
Cindy
Z.
pointed it out.
P and Z
Thank
move
you,
forward
Cindy.
with building inspector position and program, and it's in her budget.
Here's my
Moved by LaCroy.
Can I,
Hold on just a sec. Is there a second?
I'll second for discussion.
That's what I need. Thank you,
Are
sir.
you talking about adding another full-time employee?
No.
No, her discussion was that she was gonna work it into the schedules because there's not enough work available, but that's why she gave us that structure plan and she's gonna work it in.
With the budget she already has.
Clarify for me then, Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
Clarify for me then. My understanding is that building inspection would be done with or under the code inspector,
Yes.
and that it would be done only there until the point in time where it was too much of a load for the code inspector to do, and then should be coming back and requesting maybe a FTE or part-time FTE or
Okay,
something to start.
That employee would be rated a B22, which is base is $18.20 an hour, and mid-range is $21.05, and benefits is $7 an hour. So if it was $20 an hour, it'd be $27 an hour, $55,000 a year.
I don't have any of those details, sir.
So can we have Brittany?
So, what I wanted to share is this. I've been working with Brittany on the structure for her office. She already has an FT approved that she just hasn't filled. So we have an opening in the department, and her best guess right now, as far as where she projects the needs, is in this building inspector position. She could also, instead of filling this, fill an assistant director spot. So she has an FTE, but right now, most of the need would be to develop and get the building inspection process moving.
And that's what I understood. She's not going to get one of the FTEs she was
Right.
going to fill, which is your assistant, and she was going to put it in building inspecting. But I guess I wasn't against that with having code enforcement or building inspecting, because our biggest issues and the biggest issues with our community, whether their neighbor built something junky or somebody sold something junky because it was never inspected, or they built something, it costs them more a lot of times than us. So we're actually saving the taxpayer money in a sense, because if you look at all the fees have been because there's no inspector. Because we never looked and seen if they put it 10 feet from the property line or 30. So I guess I'm not opposed to
Well,
that after.
with this COVID-19, I don't see a big rush in new construction. I think things are gonna have to settle down a little bit. And I'd say I'm all for a building inspector, but I don't think 2021 is the time. I think we need to wait 1 year.
But I disagree, but Brittany?
Good morning, Brittany Molitor, Planning Director. I was listening upstairs a little bit. So John is correct. We have an open FTE in our office right now. We did not fill that FTE, and we did a 10% cut at the time when we did our cuts. So we actually had like a 21% cut back in April because we didn't fill that position. So this would just be filling that position because we're approved already for 9.5 employees in our office, and right now we have 8.5.
So number one, Brittany, how long you been waiting for someone for a building inspector? And number two, why do you believe we need a building inspector at this time?
I do think that there needs some accountability because right now we're running into issues with people not building what they say they're building. They build structures different sizes, or they just build structures and they're not getting permits at all. This person too would be reviewing all of our incoming building permits, which right now a planner is doing, and it's a significant amount of work. So with that person, the building inspector reviewing the incoming building permits, scheduling inspections, working with contractors, verifying that the state electrical and plumbing permits, and then also assisting Dwayne with code enforcement issues. Because my position is if there's a building inspector out there and they're already looking at things, there's no reason for that person to come in and tell Dwayne that there's an issue, or come in and tell Cody that there's an erosion issue. They will be able to handle those issues kind of when they're out on site. And then the other thing is our office right now is very busy with actually new construction. There's 2 developments right now that are going in, Murphy Ranch Estates and Prairie Fire, and we are getting numerous building permits every week for those subdivisions.
And same with city. COVID hasn't slowed down any building in the
Well,
city. Ron?
it won't, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
It won't. You're not going to see that now, like Mark's been pointing out. There's going to be a backlash. We just haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, our office isn't seeing it right now. We're actually probably busier.
You will
than we
not
have
see a
been.
backlash probably for 6 months to a year. So I'm all for what you're saying, but I'm not for 2021.
I think the more there's never a good timing to move forward on this, kind of like anything else we do. But I'll just tell you, been here 5 years, and we need one 5 years ago. We have so many people that are building stuff that's out of control. We have construction people that are asking us, construction contractors, to start taking licenses and making sure that people have licenses. So this is the first step. This is not something to be put off. It's the first step in how we have to move forward in order to make sure in the county that we're not building junk and we're not building stuff that actually is, people are doing what they want and then coming back for forgiveness. And then we're getting mad because the code enforcement is finding they built a garage. They have 3 sheds. I mean, it's been out of control. And since I've been here, if they were being proactive, meaning if they can go on properties, there would be some huge fines in Pennington County if you went and looked everywhere. And I can tell you that just from being, if you go to different areas and look at the construction, then go ask Brittany if they're building.
Am I incorrect that we're only doing building inspections upon complaint basis only?
No, that's actually code enforcement violations.
Okay.
The building inspections, they'll be pretty basic. They're not going to be like the cities where they go in and do, 18 to 20 inspections on a home. These are going to be pretty basic as far as kind of getting a general idea if they're not meeting setbacks, going back to the property owner and having them find some way to verify it. One of the biggest things that our office runs into, and it's a big cost to a property owner, either buying and selling or at the time, is that they'll finish basements, add bedrooms, and then their septic isn't sized appropriately. And that if they don't size their septic at the time of the initial building permit, coming in and adding on later is actually more expensive than just adding on in the beginning. So we've been trying to work through that with requiring septics to be sized for unfinished space, but that seems to be an issue, and we are continuing to see that problem, just from permits that were issued, 10 years ago.
And I think you'd have that cut down in people building whatever they want, knowing we have inspectors out there. You know what I'm saying? If you say, well, they don't have inspectors, because, again, Scott's a builder, you guys don't have inspectors. Number one, that's not good, because even for contractors, you have an unlicensed contractors going everywhere in the county because they can build whatever they want without worrying about if it's right, wrong, or indifferent. So
I see this need within the urban area of our county. I'm concerned about this. I don't want personally to be overseeing a building project out in the middle of Caputa or outside of Caputa on some ranch when they want to build a hay barn, for example. I see no, it's on their property, it's out in the middle of nowhere, it's not affecting anyone else. Now, when it comes to maybe up there in Edelweiss where the vacation rentals are being built or anywhere else that there's a concentration of population that could be negatively affected by an inappropriate build, so to speak, I get it. So.
And if we want to do VHRs and we want to change some of the rules to make sure they're following the rules and regulations as well, that's a lot to add to the areas. And if we wanted to do kind of like we were thinking some of the state, when I had talked to you, Ron, some of the state things that we wanted to follow through in the county with compliance, I mean, it adds this person into a few different realms than just one, which is a cost savings.
Madam Chair, my only concern is that we fill that position and then we do get a backlash in 6 months. you know, is there gonna be enough work for that person? I just, you know, my concern is that the enforcement officer and the building inspector, if building slows down, what do? I don't want that enforcement officer to say, well, I got time on my hands, I'm gonna go out there and enforce something. That's what I'm scared of.
Right, and our office, sorry.
I know, they should.
Our office, just with the change in the structure, we've actually lost planners and environmental planners. So actually by me moving up into the planning director, we used to have 3 people dealing with environmental issues. Now we only have 2, and there is a lot, you know, with the mining register. We have a ton of mining registrations coming up. We have inspections on erosion sediment control. We have the stormwater program that we have to be in compliance with the state. So those environmental, and then plus the septic. So we have that side that lost a person. And then with the assistant director not being there, then we've basically lost another planner. So
They're not just building inspector, they're gonna be inspecting some other stuff that actually, your people are taking the time out when they should be at their desk.
Right, so we have right now a planner that's reviewing all of the building permits that the assistant director used to do. And it's very time consuming because you're verifying easements, you're looking at plats, you're looking at setbacks, making sure they have CUPs, what their zoning are, you know, things like that. So their building permit is in compliance. So we have a planner doing that right now. And how I'm proposing that building inspector is they would be doing those things because they're the ones that would be determining, you know, those compliance with those things anyway. When they go out, they'll look at those structures and do those things. So that work right now is probably, you know, 50 to 60% of one of the planner's time right now. Plus that person is also trying to do rezones and plats and answer phones and things like that. And right now, you know, with not having public in, it's not as busy because we're not going to the counter, but our phone calls, you know, are taking a lot of time. You know, it's 10 or 20 minutes on a phone call explaining things and going over things, kind of like what Janet had talked about with the treasurer's office, because we don't have that face-to-face time. We don't know how that transition is going to be.
And Brittany, you've been in this business for a while, and I trust, since she's been also the director, that she's done an amazing job of what we need and how to do it with this group. That if she's saying that it's not to go harass people, it's because there's an overall area that there's a need for, not just
Madam Chair,
buildings.
where's this, all the new construction going, Brittany, in the county?
Most of it that we're seeing is in Murphy Ranch Estates, which is off of Longview, and then Prairie Fire, which is south on Anderson Road. Those are 2 subdivisions plats that recently went through the city. So we issue all of the building permits. They're new construction. They're more Rapid Valley, you know, the 0.2 acre type lots, single family residences.
So then, if I understand it, somebody wants to build a home, the building inspector goes out there to make sure that the setbacks are right and.
Well, we're not surveyors, so we couldn't, I mean, if it looks like could be an issue, then we would have to bring that up. So then that way they're not in front of you with a variance. That's essentially what the point of it is, and that they're building, that they, you know, what they say they're building. A lot of times people say they're building a barn, and then we end up with living quarter equalization will find an apartment and all kinds of other things in there. So it's more for verification, making sure they're getting their electrical and plumbing permits from the state, because we have no idea if this construction, if they're doing that. A lot of the contractors that are working in the county, we don't know if they're licensed, because we don't require licensing. We require licensing and certifications for septic installers, but we don't for builders.
So the building inspector, hypothetically, they would go out and inspect the building to make sure that it's supposed to be what it is, right?
Correct.
So is that building inspector going to inspect one property once, or are they going to go out there multiple times?
In theory, in my opinion, they'd probably go out twice, probably. They'd go out to see what they're building and then the finish. Because this wouldn't be like the city where you're doing, you know, multiple inspections. Because in my mind, just kind of easing into this process, if we went in, you know, full inspections, I think we would get a lot of backlash. But I just think some basics. The other thing is I think landowners, you know, trust their contractors are doing certain things. And I think you guys see that here with some of the violations and you know, giving money back and things like that. They assume that contractors are doing certain things or property is purchased. But it just kind of gives some accountability, so to speak.
I just think it'll change how people do stuff in the county all the way around instead of going, like we have the guy on behind the 44, that Nibel or whatever. If we had someone that inspected that, that wouldn't have gone as far. He did 3 lots before he even knew. That's just one example since we've been here that if people are actually looking at areas that people are building, it just becomes, and then they start blaming us. And then
Yeah.
they start getting fined and blame us.
I'm not disagreeing with inspections in rural, in urban areas. Like I said, my biggest concern is most barns and outbuildings and so forth and so out on somebody's ranches. Half the time it's built by the owner and his neighbors, and maybe a contractor on occasion. I think that people here in the urban areas need to be protected, frankly, because there are unscrupulous builders. I've been affected by that myself. Well, actually, I'm being affected from it right now. The person that built my house built the deck tilted towards the house. So I've got, every time it rains hard, I've got water flowing into my house. So I've got to fix that myself because insurance doesn't cover it. But bottom line is I don't want to be interfering with ranch and rural stuff. I think that
That's unfair.
they want to build a
That's
big
unfair.
barn out of old
That's
4x4s. They can.
That's unfair. That would be unfair to Pennington County is basically rural areas and stuff. It'd be unfair to not say they have to follow a SWIP. That'd be unfair, kind of like Evangelisto and let her build a tent because she's in urban area and all of her drainage is running into everybody else's. You need an inspector to make sure that those urban areas as well as or rural or whatever are doing just as less harm to others because you could have 10 acres, but if it's on a hill and it's all running down and you say, we're not having inspectors on SWIP or anything else. When you have an inspector, they go across the board and we follow the rules of Pennington County.
Madam
So-
Chair, no, I totally agree 100% with you about, the ramifications if you don't, people doing things wrong. My concern is the demand there. And the demand's there, and that person will be utilized and kept busy, then I don't have a problem with it.
Madam Chair,
Commissioner LaCroix.
I've been pretty quiet.
Till now.
Thank you, Logan.
No, everything that you guys have said is absolutely dead on. This has been kind of the discussion and goal of this department for quite a while. Me, myself, I don't foresee either, like we said, there's not enough business for the building inspector to do. We see the sheet, maybe one inspection a day, 1.5. And I foresee this department being directed, if we have these urban areas with the barns, I see them working with these people. This is how, they come in, you do it, and I understand Mark's concerns and Ron's both. I think we understand our area, and I think they do too. And I'm not saying they're going to be lighthearted on ag compared to the urban area, but there is a definite difference in how you would check and inspect those. I think this is a step in the right direction. It's not a full-time position. They've kind of, Brittany's done a good job of folding it into her department. A soft opening, soft beginning. Would that be better? But it seems to me the main work on it is the paperwork. I mean, you just said yourself that person's going to be basically going over the drafts that are brought into you. I mean,
So
that's going to take over. So,
and if they followed their stuff right anyway, then they're going to have a problem. They're not going to be harassing them because they're going to have it all on paper what they were supposed to be doing in the.
That's my 3 cents.
Sorry, I'll let you finish it. I'm getting tired. Is there a motion?
Yeah, there was a motion on the floor.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay,
Thank
I'm a
you.
cowboy.
Four,
I was on the fence.
ayes,
I
one.
just fell off.
You fell off the fence, cowboy.
I kind of
20
went that way too.
20
But I just breathed a little harder.
2021 compensation administration policies. What do we need to vote on the policies today, Holly, if any? We do have it in front of us, or John? Did we miss some the other day?
It's probably more of a regular commission meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Definitely is. I'm thinking
Yeah,
it is.
let's adjourn.
Yeah.
Move for adjournment.
Wait.
Never mind.
Withdraw that motion.
I'll withdraw that motion.
There was no motion. He was just,
Can you
Talking.
recess until the 30th, please?
can we
Move to
motion-
recess until the 30th for our special meeting at
Santo.
10:30.
Second by LaCroy. I saw you moving. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thanks, Cindy.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you,
John.
Cindy.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Holly.
Cindy.
Thank you, Joan.